we have a Slido QR code here, which you can use the camera on your phone to scan to ask questions throughout the day. There's also a quick and simple poll question for people to answer if they wish. Questions can also be asked via chat or in person during the Q&A session. And we've got the QR code there on this slide as well. So my name's Aidan Riley, and I'm the National Contact Point for Life in the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications. So I'll be doing a quick overview. And I'm very pleased to say we have some very distinguished guests with us today also, who'll be here to talk to you. So we've got Gustavo from the Commission, Philip Cheesty, who's also the NCP for the Clean Energy Transition sub-programme, Neil Wilkie from Elman, who people will get to know, well, certainly know Elman if they turn out to be successful in their applications. Then we'll hear from a couple of successful LIFE projects who have actually just submitted their final reports in the last couple of months. Introduction to the Real from Emma Mercer, who looks after sort of community groups and the third sector NGOs in Ireland. So that's a valuable resource there. We'll then have a Q&A session with any questions, but you don't have to wait until the Q&A to put your questions in, either, as I said, on the Slido or through chat. And then finally, I have a very exciting announcement to make after the presentations for anyone who is planning on making a submission this year to the LIFE project. So I'll just begin. So the EU Green Deal is a comprehensive and ambitious plan introduced by the European Union to tackle climate change, protect the environment and promote sustainable growth. It aims to make Europe the world's first climate neutral continent by 2050. The Green Deal encompasses a wide range of initiatives and policy measures to transform various sectors of the economy, including energy. So the EU Green Deal is not only a response to the urgent need to combat climate change and environment degradation, but also an opportunity to drive innovation, create new jobs, and enhance Europe's global competitiveness. It represents a holistic approach and building a sustainable future for both the environment and the economy. So, key objectives of the EU Green Deal include climate neutrality. So this is achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 and significantly reducing emissions by 2030. Clean energy transition, so this is promoting renewable energy sources, energy efficiency and sustainable technologies to ensure secure and affordable and clean energy supply. Circular economy then, which is to help transition to a circular economy model that reduces waste generation, promotes recycling and fosters resource efficiency. Biodiversity and nature conservation, protecting and restoring ecosystems and conserving biodiversity and halting deforestation. And obviously, LIFE is a key contributor to the Green Deal through these initiatives. So on this slide, you see an overview of the LIFE programme. So it's split into two, environment and climate. The LIFE Environment sub-programme aims to support projects that contribute to development and implementation of EU environmental policy and legislation. It focuses on areas such as nature conservation, biodiversity, waste management, air quality, water management, and the circular economy. Projects under this sub-programme often involve the demonstration of innovative solutions, best practices, and the dissemination of environmental knowledge and information. Under climate, is dedicated to supporting projects that address climate change, mitigation, adaptation. It aims to contribute to the achievement of EU climate targets and the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Projects in this sub-programme cover a wide range of areas, including renewable energy, energy efficiency, climate finance, climate governance, and the resilience to climate change impacts. They promote the development and demonstration of innovative technologies, policies, and practices for a low carbon and climate resilient future. New to the LIFE programme is the technical assistance replication. This is its second year in existence. So unfortunately, I don't have a wealth of examples to give you, but technical assistance replication, which was introduced last year, are to facilitate and enable the upscaling or replication of results achieved by projects previously funded by the EU. The proposals must fall under the nature and biodiversity and circular economy and quality of life sub-programmes. So just to look at these sub-programmes in slight more detail, we have nature and biodiversity, and as you can see outlined here, it supports the objectives set out in the EU Birds and Habitats Directives and the Invasive Alien Species Regulation. It contributes to the targets of the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030 for transnational European network and EU Restoration Plan. As 2 intervention areas, space for nature and safeguarding our species. And it's related to nature governance, addressing EU nature and biodiversity legislation, compliance, assurance, and access to justice. Under circular economy and quality of life, circular economy and waste also covers air, water, soils, and chemicals, new Bauhaus, and environmental governance. Climate change mitigation adaptation, also self-explanatory there. Clean energy transition, which has proven very popular in Ireland. So this is building a national, regional and local policy framework supporting the clean energy transition, accelerating technology rollout, digitalisation, new service and business models and enhancements of the related professional skills in the market, attracting private finance for sustainable energy, supporting the development of local and regional investment projects, and involving and empowering citizens in the clean energy transition. So, LIFE in Ireland. So since 1992, LIFE has been supporting environmental and climate projects in Ireland. In this graph anyway, you'll see since Ireland's progress since 2014, and you'll see in 21, and I also have data for 2022, how much Ireland has really progressed and has had more successful projects. So since 2014, there have been 52 projects, which have received nearly 103.5 million from the LIFE programme. And this is how it's being set out between the 4 sub-programmes. So the nature sub-programme has received the most funding in Ireland at just over 50 million. But as you can see, the popularity of clean energy transition, which may easily surpass the other sub-programmes in the coming years, considering it's very new to the programme. So who can apply? Any public or private organisation registered in the European Union can apply. In Ireland, we have had government departments, local authorities and community groups successfully receive LIFE funding. And that's the important money factors. So how much funding is provided? So standard action projects, which are formerly known as traditional projects, can receive up to 60% co-funding. There is a small caveat here that projects in the nature and biodiversity sub-programme can receive up to 75% in specific cases. Other action grants, these would be for the clean energy transition, can receive up to 5% co-funding. And the strategic integrated projects, the strategic nature projects and the technical assistance projects is also up to 60% co-funding. So this is just a few contact details. As I said, the slides will be shared. So you, for the first 3 sub-programmes, or indeed any questions relating to LIFE, you can contact us life@dec.gov.ie. Anything specifically related to clean energy transition, please contact Philip, or indeed Philip will be talking later on the clean energy transition. As a national contact point, we can help explain the various sub-programmes to you, the application process, help in finding partners and help identifying other sources of co-funding, considering for a lot of the projects out there, it will be necessary for the other 40, for you to come up with the other 40%. But there's various ways and means around this, and we're happy to talk you through with them. We'll also have a list of other important websites, and as I said, these links will all be shared later. So that's all from me. first of all. As I said, please remain to the end, and I will be having an announcement regarding opportunities for those planning on applying this year. But I would like to introduce Gustavo now. So Gustavo is a project advisor within the Nature and Biodiversity Life sub-programme at SINEA. He's the core coordinator for the Nature Government topic, thematic coordinator for freshwater projects, as well as invertebrates project pollinators. And he's here to talk to you about the first program. So thank you very much. Gustavo, I'll just
Thank you. I'm going to share the screen.
And just while we're waiting, just a quick reminder to everyone, if you can keep your mics on mute, that would help us. Thank you. Perfect, Gustavo, I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you, Aiden, and good morning, everyone. My name is Gustavo Becerra, and I work for SINEA as a project advisor, dealing mainly with projects under the Nature and Biodiversity strand of life. And I'm also coordinator for the Nature Governance topic. So as you know, SINEA is the European Executive Agency for Climate, Infrastructure and Environment, and the agency is implementing different EU programs on behalf of the European Commission. Amongst those programs, LIFE. And SINEA is also called the Green Deal Agency, as it implements these EU programs or part of those programs, directly contributing to the objectives of the European Green Deal. And as you know, the European Green Deal is set to transform the European economy and societies for a sustainable future. Sustainable is a key word. So it is the plan to make the EU economy sustainable, and this can be achieved through turning environmental and climate challenges into opportunities, just making a just and inclusive transition for all EU citizens. That is, the social aspect is also very important. I won't go into much detail here for the benefit of time, but just wanted to mention that it has a set of ambitious objectives, and that have yielded several strategies and plans. Now, in order to deliver on some of these plans and strategies, SINEA was given the mandate to manage a number of programs, including the LIFE program. So you can see it here. And to say that the LIFE program is the only EU funding scheme that is exclusively dedicated to the environment, nature conservation, and climate action. And in doing so, it fully contributes to the objectives and targets of the European Green Deal. It is a program that, with a lot of history, it has funded over 6,000 projects in the last 32 years, reaching many areas in Europe. And the total budget for the call is the call 2024 is around 570 million euro, and this is done through a bottom-up approach. So instead of defining like what is usually the top-down approach, instead of defining in a rigid way what the proposals should be, this is like open for applicants to come up with the best solutions for each of the program strands. To mention that this year it is the EU member states that can can apply. But also there are a number of associated countries that include Iceland, Ukraine, Moldova, and this year new the Republic of North Macedonia. I mean, it is clear that the program alone, with the budget that it has, cannot solve all the environmental and climate challenges. There's a lot. There's a lot to do, but it can contribute to these objectives of the European Green Deal, to a sustainable, circular, energy efficient, renewable-based, and climate neutral economy. So that is what is to be kept in mind. And it also helps to protect and restore and improve the quality of environment and health, and of course the contribution to halting and reversing biodiversity loss is also an aspect, a component. So in this sense, the LIFE program has like its niche between what is usually the European research and innovation programs, such as Horizon Europe, and the major development programs, which are the structural funds and the cohesion funds. So it aims at bridging this gap between large-scale research and implementation, and it includes things like testing and demonstration work for specific pilot actions and activities, and also it helps developing and demonstrating innovative techniques and approaches, but also the implementation itself. So maybe there's nothing really new, but it's the best practice. So that's also ensured through this LIFE program. So now let's go into the details of the program a little bit. So as you can see there, it has been mentioned before, 4 sub-programs. We have the sub-program for nature and biodiversity, which broadly speaking, it aims to contribute to the implementation of the biodiversity strategy to 2030, and more specifically, the nature directives, habitats and bird directives, and the invasive alien species regulation. Then the second sub-program, the sub-program Circular Economy and Quality of Life. So that covers all European environmental legislation that is not included in the nature and biodiversity part, such as circular economy, noise, air, chemicals, soil, water. So you can see all of those in the core document. An important aspect is that under this program, the LIFE program, it can now finance best practices in addition to innovation, as well as the circular economy side of things. And then thirdly, we have the sub-program for mitigation and adaptation to climate change. So it aims to contribute to the transformation of the European Union towards climate neutral and climate resilient society. And there are some novelties that I'll go through later on this one. And then last one, this is something I'm not going to cover, but it's the clean energy transition. So yeah, so also broadly speaking, what it does is it aims at facilitating the transition towards an renewable energy-based, climate neutral and resilient economy. But I won't go too much into it. And just to mention that around 1/3 of our beneficiaries are private companies. So these are like small, medium-sized enterprises, but also to multinationals. Then another third is more like the NGO, non-for-profit world, and the remaining third is the public administration. So let's go a bit into more detail of all the sub-programs, except for CET. So we have the sub-program Nature and Biodiversity. So it focuses on halting and reversing biodiversity loss, implementing the biodiversity strategy to 2030, supporting the Natura 2000 network, and the PAFs, the prioritized action frameworks, very important strategic documents. Typically, these projects contribute to mainstreaming nature and biodiversity objectives into other policies and financing programs, for example, the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy. And they must be focused on protecting species or habitats in danger or requiring protection or restoration. Typically, they have quite a strong component on the ground, and they should monitor the impacts, the conservation impacts quite well. In terms of financing, it can range from 60 to up to 75. That is possible as well, depending on what species or habitats they target, except for the nature governance that is fixed at 60%. So this is the sub-program Nature and Biodiversity. So if we move to the circular economy and quality of life, just to say that it aims at facilitating the transition towards a sustainable, circular, toxic-free, energy-efficient, and climate-resilient economy. There are quite a few components there that you can aim at, and it can be through direct interventions or by supporting the integration of those objectives into other policies. So it continues to finance projects at a maximum rate of 60%. Here it doesn't change. And includes waste, water, noise, soil, chemical management, and environmental governance. So this is perhaps like quite relevant for industries. Nature and biodiversity, we also welcome these types of entities, but more typically they tend to apply under this sub-program. And then the third one that I'm going to cover is climate mitigation and adaptation. So we have like two approaches. So climate change mitigation, the scope here is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to enhance the functioning of the emissions trading system that has been in the past quite popular. For applications, increasing the generation and use of renewable energy, the improvement of energy efficiency, as well as developing of land and sea management practices for natural carbon sinks. So this is like the mitigation scope, if you will. And then we have the adaptation scope, that supports adaptation policy development, adaptation strategies and plans. It also develops state-of-the-art tools and solutions, nature-based solutions. There are quite a few number of aspects that they can, areas of intervention that they can aim at, and there are some novelties here, but I'll go through it a bit later. So these are the types of you can see here the types of projects, we have action grants and operating grants. Under action grants, we have the standard action projects. These are mostly, used to be traditional projects. And then we have the strategic nature projects and strategic integrated projects. The only difference, well, there are some differences, but they are both, these types of projects are strategic. They aim at strategic documents, just that the snaps are more for nature and SIPs are more for the other strands. And then we have technical assistance, two types, the replication and the preparation, and other actions, the PLP, that I will briefly also touch on. Apart from the operating grants, these are for NGOs, for the operating activities that I will cover briefly as well. So let's start with the standard action projects. The standard action projects is one of the most popular and flexible calls. They support the development, the implementation, the monitoring as well, and enforcement of EU environmental and climate legislation. So as you can see, they are covering 3 different sub-programs. And the projects are submitted, can be submitted either by a single entity or by a consortium, a partnership. That is quite common, and sometimes it's advisable, but it depends on the proposal itself. It can be public entities, private, it's a wide range. It's just to say that it's a one-stage procedure, so it's only the full proposal. There's no concept notes anymore on those, and the maximum duration is 10 years. So as I mentioned before, there's the co-financing rate can change. So you have 60% normally, so that's like that by default. But for nature projects, it can also be either 67 or 75. Now, 75 is only for when the projects target exclusively priority habitats and or species. Okay, so this is only granted in exceptional circumstances. And the 67 is when there is like a mix that's targeting both priority and non-priority habitats and species. But there's a clear focus on the priority species. You have here when the key dates, when they're open, and the application periods for your information. So that's can be useful for you. So normally the average duration for circular economy and quality of life of the projects is around 3 years. So it's like shorter projects, and also for Klima, and for nature projects it's a bit longer, around 5 years maybe. And the average budget, okay, so it's not that we prescribe what the budget should be. It depends. What we can say is the average budget. The projects that we normally fund range from 1.5 million to 2.5, more or less. It also depends on if there are cases of land purchase and so on, so that logically the budget increases. And there are some changes and additions from previous calls, as I said. For the nature and biodiversity, there have been like 2 clarifications rather. So one is, and I would like to highlight this, the compensatory measures. So yeah, the cost related to the activities cannot be accepted based on the polluter pays principle. So it's just very logical, but and it makes a lot of sense, but we have had some cases where that was not that clear. So yeah, so the entity causing the environmental damage is liable for it, and so therefore must take the necessary preventive or remedial actions and bear all the related costs. So this is something that is not funded by the LIFE program, logically. Yeah. And then also just to clarify about the proposals, following on previous LIFE projects and coordinating requirements for multiple proposals aimed at the same or similar issues. So the most important thing here is to be really transparent of what was covered by the previous project, what it will be covering, the new proposal, and how it further contributes to it. So yeah, it's transparency what we're asking for. And then the third aspect is like the confirmation of the co-financing certificates when there is an entity outside of the consortium that is going to be funding the part of the cost. So this should be provided before signing the grant agreement. Very important. So this is nature and biodiversity for the SAP, and then the novelties on the climate change mitigation, adaptation, and governance. And there are some changes. I invite you to look at into the call documents if you intend to apply. First of all, the climate change mitigation has now 7 areas of intervention in total. For climate change adaptation, it's a new area of intervention has been added. So this is climate adaptation and health is the area of intervention number 7. And here I've included like two useful reports that you can check and see how it fits into the call. And apart from that, then we have the governance and information call. So there are like 2 areas of interventions that were created, green skills and capacity building to implement CCA and CCM policies. So here we can expect projects that work on certification schemes for climate and environmental professionals like heating and cooling sectors, experts on the installation of photovoltaic panels, enhancement of private and public collaborations. And there are a whole suite of things that can be aimed. And the second one under this call is the development of geographically, this is a bit long, but I'll read it through, it's important. Geographically explicit inventories for the LULUCF sector, creation of carbon removal registries and certification schemes, and organization of capacity building activities and advisory services. So it's kind of a broad area. So again, I invite you to take a look at the details that you can find in the call document. So moving to the strategic projects, so that these are the SIPs and the SNAPs. So these are projects that target the implementation of action plans in the priority areas of life, nature and biodiversity, circular economy, climate action, and these are very welcome. What is new here? Well, there's not that much new apart from the fact that, okay, the SNAPs are back. So last year that was not the case in 2023. So now this is we're open for applications for SNAPs, the nature and biodiversity strands. And well, here it's a bit different application procedure. So you have both the concept note, so it's a little bit more shorter, but you have to have the financial aspects ready to be able to apply for it. And then you have a second stage, the full application for those that went through the first stage. As you may know, there's like the a specific call to prepare these types of projects. So this is the preparation projects that I will explain a little bit later, and you have the key dates: 60% maximum and 14-year duration, which makes sense because this is the implementation of quite broad strategic documents. So key aspects for the strategic projects, well, they are designed to implement certain plans and strategies. As I was mentioning, they aim at large territorial scale. So normally it's like an area within a country or the whole country. It requires full engagement of the key, I should have included here, key stakeholders. So everyone who should be there has to be in the proposal. Aims to mobilize, engage, and coordinate complementary funding sources. So this is a part of it that maybe is not within the proposal itself, but it's one of the reasons why these projects were created. These types of projects to actually mobilize more money for the objectives that are within the project. And then it helps mainstream climate or environment objectives and priorities into other policies. So the technical assistance projects, the replication. Okay, so this is not a new type of project per se, but I thought it would be useful to include it here and explain a little bit more these types of projects. So first of all, it's a program, so that's nature and biodiversity and circular economy and quality of life. So those are the two strands. What specifically it aims at? Okay, so this is quite important. This is to remove the obstacles and barriers to wide-up scaling and replication of results of projects funded by the LIFE program or other EU funding programs. Okay, so the key of the important word here is this obstacles and barriers. So this has to be something that is preventing this wide-up scale and replication from taking place. Here I put like a couple of examples. So we have maybe it could be a regulation. So if the regulatory system is not in place, so this is like acting as a bottleneck, it cannot be upscaled. But sometimes it's like a normal lack of financing, this mobilizing, or even fake news is not out there, really clearly, and this has to be changed. So what the thing here will be like, what will the project do to overcome it? So this is what the projects will be aiming at. So removing the legislative or regulatory barriers, technical barriers, replicating the project's results, but focus on the steps. How is this going to take place? And facilitate the access to other EU or non-EU financial instruments. So that will be the proposal. I will invite you as well to read through carefully what it says in the core document, and also to check the EU Live Info Day that took place recently, and then maybe there you can also get some further information. And then the other technical assistant type of project is the preparation. And as you know, This is also covering nature, biodiversity, circular economy, and quality of life and climate action. So one thing that is important to keep in mind is that the applications should cover both the concept note and the full application. So ideally, if it's to apply now, that will be for the 2025 call of the strategic projects. So and yeah, the deadline is in September. Well, typically these are small projects because it's a preparatory. Is 70,000 really. Well, it's the maximum life contribution. And then we have the PLP. So yeah, the PLP also remains the same in a way, but at the same time the topics change. Of course, the topics, these are like very specific topics. There's a need to address something in particular, and these are like specified in the call document. So it's one stage, and also it's in September. But something that's quite attractive is that it's up to 90%. So if you see that there's something that really fits what you want to do, I will advise to go for it because the chances are high. But it has to meet what you want to do. That's with the difficulty. So for this year, here are the topics. Two of them are for Ukrainian cities, so probably are not very relevant for you, but there are also some others on marine habitats, extended produces responsibility, low tillage, circular Europe hotspot, addressing some pollutants in water, marine transport, and the biodiversity certificates and credit schemes in EU wetlands. So yeah, I will invite you to take a look at those. And then I wanted to include the NGOs. I'm not too sure it's too relevant, but yeah, for completeness, this is operating grants. So what they aim is at covering the running the running cost of NGOs, but NGOs that have like a clear European range. So and how it works? Well, there are like two types of calls within it. One is like the framework partnership agreement that's covering 2 years, and then from those that are successful have an annual call that they can benefit from. So they compete. Those that have been in a way pre-selected, then they compete as well to actually secure the funding in a way, in a short list. So this is the overview, like from the call, the budget, when the dates, and when it is expected that the signature will happen. So you have here all of them included. I don't know how we're looking with time. I think this can be also quite useful.
Yeah, please go ahead. That'd be great.
Okay, so this deals with how to have successful applications for life. What aspects to take into account, key things that we see happening, all the time, and some tips that could be useful. Of course, this is like I'm going to talk about like something quite general in a way, because there are many different types of calls and types of projects, but this is the pattern that we have identified. It's very, but first of all, to say that is like competition is is high, particularly in nature and biodiversity, but not only. And there are some challenges as well in relation to the IT environment and application forms, if compared to previous years, not recently, but further back. We have new systems, but yeah, so it's not really a copy-paste job. Because of that. And yeah, we see that sometimes that the proposals are not successful because they are either poorly prepared or simply they have limited ambition or risk taking. You have to put together a proposal that really sells it enough, but not only that has a high impacts that are expected, but they have to be feasible, and that normally is clear from the proposal. If you know what is being said and proposed, if it's really realistic, if it's feasible, if it meets reality as well. So it's a little bit of a balance, you know. Yeah, things to read. Okay, to start with the documents, and if you can get help from the national contact point, all the better. And then look into the design. The design, something that is very basic is very important is the baseline description. So what is the starting point? What is the baseline that everything that you're going to do is going to be measured against? Yeah, sometimes the baseline is not there. If the baseline is not there or clearly or specific, then of course the impact cannot be measured, and that automatically is going to lower the number of points that you're going to receive. Then the sequence of actions should be logical and clearly linked to the project description. So yeah, normally the reasons why you have the proposal are very clear, and so that is the reason. That's why you are putting together all these actions, but then how you're going to get to it should be like the steps should be really logical, and then was like the time frame and that you have chosen, and how you're going to go about it has to be very clear. Then, of course, the expected results and quantitative estimation of project impacts. Yeah, they're like the KPIs and the key project indicators. How is it going to impact the environment? We need numbers. We need quantitative results, and that is during and after the project. So yeah, there's and normally the impacts part weighs actually more compared to the other aspects of the evaluation criteria that we have. So very important as well. It also the activities and plans should ensure sustainability of the project results. What is going to happen after the project has finished? How is it going to be maintained? The resources, how is it going to be ensured that what you have done is going to stay? Of course, the LIFE program has like with investment, you know, is invested in this project, so that we want the results to last. Then for the uptake and replication, it needs to be included in the proposals, generally speaking. So how is it going to how is that going to happen, and what specific actions are included within the project so that happens? Yeah, and then the description of the beneficiary involved, all the beneficiary involved in specific actions, who is doing what, and who is taking the responsibility, the leading role, who is supporting, and so on. And we ask you, or we suggest that it would be good to have ambitious objectives, but it's not that because you have many actions that you have more chances to get the funding. No, because it's also all about the focus. What are you targeting specifically? And yeah, so it's good to limit the number of actions to the ones essential to achieve the project objectives. Then sometimes you also see that it's not coherent what you describe in one part of the application with what you see, what we see in other parts, typically also the KPIs. And so, yeah, because otherwise if it's not coherent, then there's not a clear proposal that you have submitted. So you cannot, these contradictions, so we also see them quite often. The partnership structure, sometimes there are like some stakeholders that are clearly missing. It could be maybe one example, I don't know, farmers, or maybe there's an industry in particular that is not there, or they all should be there to have a strong proposal, right, in terms of the partnership structure. And then also to keep in mind that the project duration should have sufficient time to gather the information. Sometimes, of course, we ask for for a baseline, but maybe sometimes it needs to be updated. There's you have to have a very accurate picture at the beginning of the project, so you need some preparatory actions. So you have to allow for that to happen. Then a typical problem or challenge that the project have while running is to obtain the permits and authorizations. On paper, it can look like, okay, this is going to happen in this time, but you have to provide more time and a buffer as well for unexpected events. Many things can happen. Typically, you have also a risk table where you see you detail what impact each of the risks will have and how likely is that to happen. So yeah, I would advise to add a buffer, even if you think that it's not really necessary, but it's good for it to be there. Of course, if for the personnel and all that can be sustained, of course. And also to make sure that you meet the communication requirements. They are in the code documents. Think about platform meetings, network events. This is something that is very, very useful. This exchange of information among the live projects that deal with the specific theme that you're targeting. So here's just a summary of what is a good design and what common problems are encountered. So normally the problems are insufficient background information. What I was saying, why, who, how, we need that baseline. The rationale for projects defined during the project, no. It has to be clear why you do the project and what steps you're taking. So it's not like, okay, and then we'll see. No. The objectives are too broad, too many. The partnership, what I was saying, you have to have a strong partnership there. for the impacts, the quantification of impacts to be over optimistic or unrealistic, or simply there are no quantification of the impacts. That when you have a proposal and is proposing is given like numbers that are like really not what we know with experience with other projects that can actually happen on the ground, and automatically the points are reduced. The replication is not the same as networking on dissemination, and the big plans to sustain project results after the project ends. We also want to see what's going to happen afterwards. And that's all from me, really. Just say good luck with your applications, and I'm available for questions later on.
Thank you so much, Gustavo. Yes, as Gustavo was saying, he'll be available for questions later. We've got a few questions in already on the Slido, so please use that for asking them. The link is in the chat. Next up, we have our colleague from Enterprise Ireland, Philip Cheesty. So he's the national contact point for Horizon Europe Cluster 5 Energy and Euratom and the EU Cities Mission. He was NTP for Horizon 2020 Energy. That included the energy efficiency CSA topics, which are now part of the LIFE CET sub-program. And he's now going to run through that sub-program for you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Aideen. You can see my screen and sound okay, yeah?
And yeah, everything's great. Thanks, Philip.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, everybody. So I'm with Enterprise Ireland. I'm national contact point for energy in some of the European programs, Horizon Europe and LIFE CET. There's quite a good complementarity between the clean energy transition sub-program of LIFE and Horizon Europe. You see quite a lot of people apply for both. So Horizon Europe will be research and demo type projects, where the LIFE CET is very much market uptake. But there's sort of cross-cutting areas there that can be quite interesting. So there's quite a difference between the clean energy transition sub-program of LIFE compared to the three sub-programs that Gustavo covered. The CET part came into the LIFE program in 2021, so this is our 4th year of calls. We had a few teething problems, I would say, at the start when some topics were not, there was no projects funded under some topics, even some topics didn't have any submissions, but those sort of issues have been ironed out, and it's now quite a competitive program. So we have, the call is open. The deadline is 19th of September. The application procedure is a single stage. There are coordination and support actions. So it's about networking, coordination, and developing support mechanisms for clean energy transition. There is a new topic under it at the moment. It just added this year. It's the Standard Action Project. I have a slide on that. So a few weeks ago, the Commission had an information day or an information 3 days on the LIFE, the LIFE program. And there was a full day on the clean energy transition side. And all those presentations and videos are available. So if you're interested in coordinating a project, you should really have a look at what's available. There's quite a lot of information available. So for each topic, there's a video with a project offer discussing the issues, and there's some background policy documents that sort of gives you the flavor of where all these things come from. So there was 9 individual sessions. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to cover everything that they covered today. So I have a single slide on each topic, and I have some, what I would say, pertinent points for most of the topics. But if you are going to go ahead, you definitely need to look at what's available, and there is plenty available. So in terms of what feeds into the program, so all the EU Commission strategies. So at the top, Gustavo mentioned the Green Deal. So the Green Deal is the climate neutrality for Europe by 2050. That sort of filters down into all the programs the Commission run. And then from that, then you have the renovation wave. So the renovation wave is a strategy that the Commission have about renovation of 35 million buildings by 2030, more green jobs in construction, double the renovation rate. I mean, the buildings in Europe can be quite old. There's a huge percentage that are over 50 years old. And the number of buildings the percentage of buildings that are being renovated is in single figures, low single figures. So they're trying to double that renovation rate. So then that feeds into the various programs. So you have the energy efficient directives, the renewable directives, and the buildings performance directives. And also you have newer strategies like Repower EU. So Repower EU is about getting rid of use of Russian fossil fuel because of the war. And that's targeting more solar, more heat pumps, more heating and cooling systems. So a lot of the topics then will be reflected in the strategies that the Commission are interested in. Now, these topics have been around for a good while. So they started in 2003 as the Intelligent Energy Europe, where it was very much energy efficiency. The topics then moved into Horizon 2020, and you can see there quite a lot of projects have been funded so far. And then in 2021, they moved into the Life Clean Energy Transition. So there's quite a lot of background projects already available, and there's quite a lot of databases. So really, the Life CET is about getting all actors involved. So you have citizens at the center of the energy transition, you have breaking market barriers and regulations. So you have the regulatory side, you have the finance side in mobilizing investments to more access. And then you have the governance and skills, so developing skills for the clean energy transition. So there's topics for everybody, from public authorities, citizens, energy community groups, research groups looking at the future of energy systems, etc. So just a quick overview of last year's call. As I said, this is our 4th year now in the clean energy transition. So for the 2023 call, there were 15 topics. 236 proposals were submitted. Out of the 236 proposals, they funded 61 projects. So you can see the success rate, I suppose, there. There's 29 different countries participating in successful projects, and there's 540 participants in those successful projects. So on average, that's about 8 partners per project. You know, that varies obviously depending on the project, but it gives you a flavor of the numbers involved in the applications, etc. And then you can see the types of projects that were funded. So one of the bigger areas were 18 projects in the local and regional investment projects. Now, the success rate really depends on the topic also. So you can see there over on the right-hand side, the list of the topics in the 2023 work program. So for one of the topics, EPRL, which is about energy labeling and regulation, there was only 4 proposals submitted. Where you have a topic like the one-stop shop, the OSS, close to the bottom there was 36 proposals. So the product projects and renovation projects, they're all quite highly subscribed, where the more policy-orientated projects were a lower number of proposals submitted. So that gives you a flavor of what's going to happen. So now this year's call, 2024, we have 15 topics. You can see from the top, there's a budget allocation per topic. So for the local topic, CET local, there's 7 million available. The EU expect a contribution of about 1.75 million. So that means around 4 projects will be funded under the local topic. And then over on the right-hand side, you see the eligibility requirements. So these are coordination support actions, and the coordination in most cases is about EU coordination. So you need European partners. So for 10 of the topics, you need 3 partners from 3 different countries. And the topics that are very much locally focused, like the build up skills topic, you can apply, a single applicant can apply. But really, the scope of the projects really means that one single entity can't really cover everything in the scope. So even where a single applicant can apply, you usually find that there's 5 or 6 partners there in the consortium, providing all the various requirements that the scope is asking for. So, and then on the very bottom there, we have a new topic. It's similar to what are in the other sub-programs, a standard action project, and that's 60% funded, and I'll have a slide on that. So the next 15 or so slides are about the individual topics. As I said, I won't be able to cover everything. There's plenty of information available. But the topics are actually sort of grouped into maybe 5 or 6 intervention areas. So the first area is the citizens. So the first topic for the citizens in the clean energy transition is around energy poverty, alleviating household energy poverty in Europe. Now, there's been a lot of projects in this particular area. So this is about building on existing initiatives, including the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. And the link is there that if you go there, you'll see quite a lot of projects already involved. They're quite interested in making sure that you involve public authorities and the relevant intermediaries. And they're also interested in focus on particular groups that are more at risk for energy poverty. So these are sort of the areas of the scopes that you should be looking at. And then in the scope itself, you need to cover a maximum of 2 of the areas. So looking at support for private multi-apartment buildings, looking at national authorities in implementation, the EED provisions, capacity building for public authorities, and then setting up test energy efficiency improvement schemes for households, etc. So this is an energy poverty topic. It's an EU-wide, so it requires 3 partners from 3 different countries. So the next topic for the citizens is the energy communities. So this is about developing support mechanism for energy communities. And you can focus on 1 or 2 action areas under the scope. Now, when you read the topics, when you read the 15 topics, there's slightly different text about what they mean about focusing. So this particular topic expects people to focus on 1 of the 2 actions. In some topics, you can cover a few parts of the scope, but you have to really justify why you're extending it. And then the budget may not sort of allow you to cover everything. So just be careful about reading the text in what areas that you need to be covering. But for the energy communities, the first part is about setting up an energy community, and the second part is providing support services for energy communities. And they're very much interested in getting public authorities involved in this particular area. Now, public authorities don't have to be part of the consortium, but they really do have to support the project, whether it's through interactions during the project, but you need to provide support letters, etc. So it's about collaboration between local authorities and energy communities. And then it's looking at the barrier analysis. So when you're putting a project together, you should really know what the landscape is, that you've done a barrier analysis, that you present that as part of the proposal, and then you're talking about what ways you're going to get over it. And then the services can be technical support, licensing, financial aspects, pooling resources, etc. You can see the information there. And again, this is across European projects, so 3 partners, 3 countries. And the next 3 topics are about decarbonization of buildings and heating and cooling. So the first one is about better renovation. So energy performance of buildings, marketing renovation, faster, deeper, smarter service and data driven. So it's all in the title really. So you can focus on 1 of the 2 scopes. So the first scope is about large scale, deep renovation. And deep renovation is a definition. So there's quite a lot of definitions out there. Deep renovation really means looking at saving maybe 60% energy savings. So you can have national deep renovation definitions. So you need to be careful what you're actually targeting and specify that in the proposal. So scope A looks at deep renovation, removing market barriers, rolling out renovation passports, or improving coordination of supply actors. And then scope B is about the data services, availability and use, etc. So buildings energy data services proposals should demonstrate how they will improve availability, improve the quality, improve the accuracy of the data. And then this data then feeds into energy performance contracts and certificates, etc. So this is about renovation, better ways of doing renovation. 3 partners from 3 countries required. The next 2 topics, the first one is about district heating and cooling, very much coming from the Repower EU and the Renewable Energy Directive. The district heating and cooling is really looking at focusing on low temperature renewable energy or waste heat. And also the district heating has been identified as a key area in getting away from fossil fuel usage. So the proposals are expected to work with operators and owners of existing district heating systems and providing with the required technical support. And then as with all these topics, there's a good area in terms of financial innovation, so development of investment plans for the cooling networks, etc. And this financial aspect and business methods, etc., influences all the topics. So the next one is on heat pumps. So again, 2 scopes. You should only target one of the 2 scopes in this particular case. So the first one is alternative business and delivery models. So it's about developing, demonstrating, or replicating alternative business heat delivery systems in existing buildings. And this particular topic is actually, it's not a research topic, so you're not going to develop a new heat pump. It's about using existing technologies that are already available on the market. And this market uptake is really a big focus of the Life CET topic. So always market uptake, using what's there. So you don't have to develop some new technology. It's about maybe using old technology in a new area, in a new market, or even in a new usage system. And the scope B is about getting industrial sectors and processes to use technology provided by the heat pumps providers. So again, 3 partners, 3 countries. So the build-up skills. So the next few topics about skills and capacity of industry. So this one is focusing on, in 2011, there was an initiative from the Commission under the Intelligent Energy Europe scheme where they developed this build-up skills program initiative. They've already funded nearly 100 projects up to 2023, and they'll fund a few projects from this year. There is quite a lot of information packs available. There's quite a lot of projects that you can follow and see what's happening. It has 2 scopes. It's broken in the requirements for the applicants. So in scope A, it's very local. So a single applicant from one country can apply. And it's about upgrading existing training and qualification schemes. So working with maybe some of the universities, etc., in developing new qualification schemes. It could be around heat pump deployment, it could be solar deployment, etc. And then scope B is about more European practice for a build-up skills community. Now, the Irish Green Buildings Council have a strategy. It's called BUSI 2030. The link is there. The presentations will be available later. So they have a strategy document for skills out to 2030. So if you're interested in this topic, you should be having a look at what's targeted by the Irish Green Building Council. So the next topic is for business. It's about supporting clean energy transition of European businesses. Again, 2 scopes. The first scope is about the green leap forward for businesses. It's about strengthening collaboration. So in energy over the years, projects were sort of quite localized. They all came up with their own rules and regulations. So this particular topic is about member states collaborating, coming up with new systems and a harmonized approach and implementation of cost-effective energy efficiency measures. So it's really about harmonizing methods in business across Europe. And scope B is about fostering cooperation between companies and how they trigger interest, etc., and to develop benchmarking and marketing mechanisms. So very much focusing on European businesses. The next few topics are about building a national and regional network for supporting clean energy. So the first one is local, CET local. This is very much for regional authorities. It has 3 areas: extensive and in-depth capacity building, then blueprints for integrated approaches for heating and cooling, and then organizational structures to coordinate implementation. So this is about public authorities targeting these specific areas. So for example, the blueprints for integrated approaches for heating and cooling is looking at new plans, streamlining actions to get it implemented, bundling efforts at regional level, talking to the various financial groups, and then facilitating dialogue with relevant stakeholders, including citizens and the governance levels. So very much public authority getting out there to implement energy efficiency and heating and cooling, etc., and coming up with processes to do that. And because it's again, it's trans-European, it's looking at 3 partners from 3 countries. This is a sort of straight up topic. It's about policy. It's about looking at the directives, the Energy Efficiency Directive, the Renewable Energy Directive, or the Buildings Directive, and implementing those on a national level. So this topic is really for the people like SEAI, it's Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. They're actually in quite a number of LIFE projects over the years, and this will be a topic that they would probably be interested in. And then this one is about products. This is about building a national regional framework for new products. So this is about real world energy consumption. So everybody knows about the European EU energy label. 93%, it says here, 93% of people have seen the label. Nearly 80% of people know what the label is, and around 80% of people use it when they're buying new goods. So the EU energy label is quite a successful energy labeling system. And this topic is about building on that, really. So you need to talk to households, see what they want, select the products, have a good sample and a geographical spread, and then look at the criteria to come up with new process around EU eco-design and energy label regulation. So quite an interesting topic there. And then we have a traditional topic is about one-stop shop. You can see the graph there on the right. It's the very winding path people have when they want to renovate their buildings. You have to start. So at the top, you have all the people involved, from engineers to brokers to banks to public authorities. And then down on the left-hand side, you have the marketing, the detection, the design, the finance solutions. And a household will have to go through this process and find out who's doing what. And it's obviously a very onerous task. So the one-stop shop is about putting everything ready for consumers to use. And it has 2 scopes. So again, you focus on one of 2 scopes. So the scope A is about non-professional homeowners. So it's for the non-specialists. So it's the whole customer journey, putting in a process to find out what they want, how they have to design it, who they need to talk to, and then financial support, etc. And then this scope B is about private professional housing operators. So again, it's a one-stop shop for private professional housing operators. And these topics being very location specific, it only requires 1 applicant from 1 eligible country. But as I said earlier, usually these projects have maybe 4 or 5 partners, or even up to 8 partners, providing all the various areas to make sure the project is quite good and successful. And then this topic is about renovation of public buildings. And actually, as an example, there's a topic called TRES, Tipperary Energy Agency are in it. They're with Vivid Edge and TUS, Technological University of Shannon. It's an EU project, and it's about supporting the Atlantic Seaboard public bodies, where they're going to renovate 25 public buildings over the next 3 years. So this particular project, TRES, had 3 Irish partners targeting 25 buildings in the Atlantic Seaboard area. So that's a sort of a good example of a project that will fit under this topic. The PDA topic is, again, another traditional topic. It's project development assistance. So if somebody's planning to spend money, if a public authority has to spend 20 million on upgrading energy systems, putting in new LED lighting, etc. I mean, there were some of the earlier projects were in that particular area. This is a topic where if you know you're going to spend money, you can use this PDA topic to set up a process to put in place a good process to end up doing further development of projects. Now, the critical part of this particular topic is that there's a leverage ratio required. So if you get a 1 million from the commission to set up the process, then you have to show that you're going to spend 15 million. So the leverage ratio of 1 to 15 for bigger projects and 1 to 10 for residential building projects. And you can cover the various sectors, whether it's buildings, heating and cooling, infrastructure, etc., renewables and mobility. And in the last call, we have a project led by a UCC research group in this particular area, looking at colleges and innovative renovation projects where they know they're going to spend money in the next few years, and they're going to set up a project to set up the process using this particular topic. And then you have private finance. This is about leverage private finance to do sustainable projects. It's you can focus, you can do some renewable work, but you have to focus on energy efficiency. So it's bringing in private finance for sustainable energy projects. You look at the market, you analyze it, you come up with a concept for finance. Now, again, you don't have to come up with a brand new financial package. You can use what's already out there, maybe use it in a new innovative way, or use it in a new area that's never been used before. And again, that's 3 partners, 3 countries. So the final topic is the Standard Action Project. All the other topics were top down. So there's a document, there's a work program of nearly 100 pages. Each topic has 1 or 2 pages. It's a top-down type topic, whereas the SAP, or the Standard Action Project, is similar to what Gustavo talked about. These are bottom-up. So if you have a project in the clean energy transition area, but it doesn't fit maybe the top-down type topics we talked about, you can look at the SAP. Now, the only difference here is all the other topics are 95% funded, the coordination and support actions. SAP is 60% funding, similar to the SAPs in the other sub-programs. But you can look at local and regional authorities, ESCOs, supporting energy service companies, financial institutions looking at developing products, or EU manufacturers looking at energy technologies, etc. So this is a bottom-up project, but it could be quite interesting. But maybe the 40% funding, you'll have to maybe talk to some funding mechanism to look at that. So when you go to the document, each topic will have its scope, its objectives, but it also has the impacts and indicators. Now, I could have had a lot of slides for each topic about the impacts required. So impact is when it's been evaluated, actually the impact section is weighted 1.5 times. So it's quite an important part of your proposal. So the impacts are broken down really into 3 areas. So you really have the life CET, or the strategic indicators. And these can be primary energy usage, greenhouse gas savings, renewable usage, etc. And then each topic will have specific indicators and impacts. So when you're targeting the topic, you need to look at the document, go through the impacts that are listed and address those. And then for each project, some projects will have totally different impact focus than other projects. So you have to define those. So the impact tool is quite important. Also online, you have to go into part C, and there's a weight tool for the key impacts, key product impacts. And they will have to match what you have in the part B proposal. The KPIs in part C will be maybe single figures, and then you'll have to develop them up in the part B. And they all have to match and have to be quite justifiable and have to be believable. So you have project-specific stuff, topic-specific stuff, and then the life CET focus. So the proposal itself, it's a single-stage proposal. It's part A, which is administrative online. Part B is where you download the template, 65 pages, fill it all in, write up your project into a PDF and upload it. And then part C is also online, and that's where the KPIs, the key performance indicators are put in. Then there's a mandatory template for the participant information, and there's also a mandatory template for the budget information. And then for a lot of the CSAs, the support letters are quite important. So if you're working with a local authority and they're not going to be actually a beneficiary in the project, but they want to get involved in the project, then a letter of support from them goes into one of the optional annexes. So then when you come to the evaluation, when you look at the template that you downloaded to fill in part B, it's broken into relevance, impact, implementation, and resources. And they're all evaluated, and they're each evaluated and scored. So the minimum score requirement for each area is 10. You have to get over 55 in total to be considered for funding. The maximum score you can get is 90, and that takes into account the weighting of impact. And then obviously impact is quite important. Some topics you may get funding if you score 70 or so, but quite a lot of the topics now with the number of proposals to meet it, you'll need to score quite high. So each area is important. Your idea is important, the impacts are important, the project management and the quality of the project management is important, and then the resources that you're using to develop the project are quite important, and everything gets scored. For this call, the evaluation will probably be done by February 2025, and the grant agreement signed around July 2025. So on final slide, things to note. As I mentioned at the start, the Commission had an EU Life Info Day a few weeks ago. All that information is available. I think in the chat I put the funding and tenders link to the actual topics. There's quite a lot of FAQs for each topic. There's usually, each topic has about 2 pages of text, but there's always questions about definitions. There's always questions about what you mean by this and what you mean by that. And the Commission or SINEA are quite good at answering those and then putting in the FAQs. So always keep an eye on the FAQs linked to the topic that's on the funding and tender portal. You need to make sure that your proposal covers the scope of one of the topics and have a clear understanding of what you're starting at. So what's the situation? What is the problem really? And what are you going to do to address the problem? You have to have a concrete activity. Who are you targeting and what are the impacts you're targeting? And then you need a good consortium, complementarity, and for a lot of the topics, it's 3 partners from 3 countries. And you can't just do a project in Ireland, a project in France, and a project in Spain, and that they look like individual projects. They all have to feed off each other, they all have to learn from each other, and they all have to be complementary to each other. So the project has to sort of read like it's a true EU project, not just national project. And when you're looking at the budget, describe the tasks, allocate resources, and then calculate the budget. Don't start off with a budget and work up to it. There's quite a lot of projects available on the dashboard that SINEA have. So Ireland, we've been doing quite well. At the moment, we have just under 10 million. In the 2023 call, we actually have another few million coming in. So when the grant agreements are signed for those, we'll be over 10 or 11 million. We have maybe 60 or so successful partners over the few years. So we're quite good at this particular area of the LIFE program. And the main thing you should get from today from me is I'm available to talk to you about individual topics, review proposals, answer questions, and show you where links are, etc., and link you up with other projects. So if you don't get anything from today from me, just get my name and contact details. And I think that's it, Aideen.
Yep, thank you so much, Philip. That was really helpful, and I'm sure people can now understand and see why the Clean Energy Transition sub-programme is so popular in Ireland. I'm sure you've got plenty of examples from your own localities, about, these sort of initiatives, the one-stop shops, all being implemented. As Philip said, please contact us at any stage. We'll be sending out contact details next week. And you know, even if you Google Life NCP, and you'll find Ireland and our contact details there. So please get in touch. Philip also mentioned the letters of support. As NCP, we have in the past and we will in the future help you get those letters of support. So we have contacts in the national regional assemblies, the local authorities, and our own department, the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, can also provide you with letters of support as long as your project you know, aligns with our objectives, and we're happy to do that. So those are all the sub-programs. As I said, if you're interested and you think you will be applying this year, please stay on to the end, where I'll be announcing an opportunity that the department is given to those potential applicants this year. So once you've applied and you've been deemed successful, you'll then be in touch with Elmen, who are a project coordinator, and we've got Neil to talk to us next. So Neil is a technical monitor with the Elmen Consortium and has been involved with the LIFE programme for almost 30 years, both as a project manager and as part of the Commission's external monitoring team. Since 2009, Neil has been part of the UK-Ireland LIFE monitoring team, contracted by the Commission and its agencies to monitor all LIFE-funded projects across the EU. Neil is based in County Leitrim, covering mainly LIFE nature projects in Ireland and the UK. And prior to this, he managed 3 LIFE projects in Scotland. So I welcome Neil for your presentation. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Aideen. Good morning, everyone. And goodness, it kind of makes you feel a bit old with an introduction like that, nearly 30 years involved in the LIFE programme. But I would say probably from that, I've got a wee bit of experience, and I'd like to use this morning to hopefully share some of that with you. I'm from, as Aideen says, I'm from the LIFE monitoring team, Elmen. We monitor all strands of the project except the clean energy transition, which Philip and his team obviously take care of. The purpose, what I'm going to talk to you about in my slot this morning is first who we are, what we do, our role in the program, and our relationship with projects. And secondly, I'm going to run through a few tips. Gustavo went through quite a few tips from their point of view. I will add to that and reiterate a number of the points that Gustavo made. So without any further ado, so what does Elmen do? Well, we are essentially hired by SENEA on behalf of the Commission to perform this monitoring role during the implementation of LIFE projects. The work is essentially twofold. We provide an advisory service, so we are here to help you. Any first point of contact, any query, any guidance that you need, you contact us. And secondly, our second part of the role is to assist SENEA in your evaluation of your progress during the project, and obviously ultimately at the end in evaluating your results. We have a team, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we have specialist knowledge in a range of topics. Obviously, it is quite broad, the LIFE programme. Some people are more specialist in nature biodiversity, like myself. Some would be more specialist in climate projects or in some of the other strands. We, as I said, we evaluate performance and result. And we also have a role where we try to help get a deeper understanding of projects, which we feed back to SENEA and the Commission to get more added value out of your project. And each project has an assigned monitor. This is the UK-Ireland team, which I am part of. Some of you may recognise some of these faces. We have Lynn Barrett and Hannah Fenton in the top row. Then there's myself, Karen Loonan, and Lauren Jeffries. UK, someone mentioned UK. Yes, they're still alive in the programme, but no, they are no longer obviously getting new projects, but they have the existing projects that were funded before the cutoff year in 2020 still have to be completed, and so we are continuing to monitor the completion of a handful of UK projects which are still open. But primarily, our team, the team you see in front of you there, are the monitors for for Ireland, obviously. So a little bit about ELMEN itself. We're a consortium formed specifically for the monitoring of life projects. That is what ELMEN does. We've been through several iterations for the last 20 years. Some of you may remember us as NEMO. That was from 2 years back, and even prior to that, we were called Astrali. So we have evolved over the years, but a lot of the team, including myself, have gone through all those iterations, and we're still here. So we carry, as I said, a lot of experience. There are currently 7 partner firms within the consortium. We are now part of Particip, which we are the German team. So we're Particip UK. Don't ask me why, but that's the team that the UK Ireland team are part of. The coordination of ELMEN comes from Brussels. We have a central team in Brussels. And the administration comes from our partner, which happens to be Particip in Freiburg in Germany. You don't really need to know that, but just as a little bit of background. An important partner in the consortium is EY, based in Prague, and they lead on the financial monitoring aspects of the project. So they're a great asset to the team. We used to have communications in our remit, but that is now in a separate contractor takes care of com. I'm going to mention, as I said, we used to be called NEMO, and when we changed to ELMEN, we underwent a number of changes in the setup, specifically or focusing mainly on how we deliver the advisory aspect of our work. That is now done through a help desk, which we're all familiar with nowadays in the world we live in. So essentially, that is where you have you will have people registered to submit queries to the help desk. They're categorized, a ticket is raised, and you will get a response within 2 working days, and it will be assigned to a monitor, which will probably be your monitor, because obviously they know the details of your project. You choose the method you would like to get your response. It would normally be an email with a record of the query and a record of the response. If it's a complex question, you may need to there may be a follow-up. So if there is some bump in the road or some different direction that may be needed to consider, then there may be a project amendment, and that would trigger a new piece of work. We would also encourage you to give feedback. This is a new system. So far, the feedback that we've had has been positive. Everyone kind of groaned when we told them it was going to a help desk, as we did, but in fact, it does seem to be working quite well. And the key thing is this speed of response, which you will get, that we have done that well. So that's advisory. The reports evaluations. This is the part of the role that, as I said, we assist SINEA. SINEA do the evaluations. They are the bosses, but we are helping them. We are the people on the ground or nearer the projects who have a closer understanding of individual projects to assist SINEA, who have many projects. So in terms of reporting, this has changed over the years. It used to be annual reports. It is now essentially 2 formal reports. one at mid-term and one at the final report. The mid-term report will be submitted when you have reached a certain threshold of spend, i.e. in fact it's 100% of your first tranche of EU funding. So there will be a financial report, a financial claim, this is what we've spent, and a technical report, which should match the financial report. And then a final report at the end of the project, telling the whole story and presenting the whole picture of spend as well. So this is the only time that we will formally evaluate your progress. The LIFE website's a fabulous resource for templates, guidance, queries, sample reports. Strongly advise you to have a look at that. Financial matters will continue to be checked. So obviously, you know, big budget projects, financial management is absolutely essential. In fact, it's just as essential as technical matters. So we obviously encourage you, any problems, any queries, anything financial that you're not sure of, use the help desk. Deliverables will only be assessed with the formal report. You will be now submitting your deliverables, those which can be an electronic format, which most of them are nowadays in PDFs. They are encouraged to be submitted to an e-portal now, but we will evaluate them at the reporting stage. So yeah, everything is now submitted electronically, thank God, and that is how we go forward. Now, we also encourage you, of course, to leave feedback on this, because we are, as I say, it's relatively recent that we have gone into this new system. Visits to the project, or in EU parlance, missions. You may have heard that phrase. So we used to visit you annually. The monitoring team, your monitor, would visit you annually. Now we visit you at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, essentially. The first visit for traditional projects is a virtual. It's a virtual visit. It's an online meeting. That usually, that has to take place within the first 6 months of the project. So you have time to recruit the team, get up and running. And then the second visit is at mid-term, prior to submission of that mid-term report, to help the monitor verify your progress, which will be in your mid-term report. And then there will be a mission at the end of the project prior to submission of the final report. Again, the same principle behind that. You will get one visit from your PA, your project advisor, your SINEA project advisor, who will accompany the monitor. That may be at mid-term, it may be at the end of the project. We encourage that it's at mid-term when things are still going on. It is usually more useful then. But you will obviously be given advance notice, and you will work with the monitor to prepare for that visit, which essentially will be a mission. Okay, so that was a quick run through who we are, what we do. So yeah, just to recap, we, remember, are only involved in the implementation stage. We meet once you get the nod. Once you sign the grant agreement, we will be in contact. You will be assigned a monitor, and we will stay with you through thick and thin, right to the end of the project. So just to be clear, we are not involved in the application stage. That is not part of our remit. I am involved in days like today, but when the nitty gritty of you putting together an application, it's very much using your NCP deck and obviously Enterprise Ireland. We don't get involved in that. But the minute you get the green light, you get your project approved, then we come into the scene. So, as I said, top tips for a good proposal. I think it is, a lot of these have been mentioned today already, but they are absolutely worth reiterating. Philip mentioned a lot that I'm going to mention. Gustavo did as well. I'm going to add my tuppence worth here. Actually, I'm not sure if this one was mentioned, and it's a big one as far as we're concerned. Project duration. In our experience, the duration that you set for your project is not long enough. In fact, there's a stat there: 50% of projects apply for a project extension. I wouldn't be surprised if that is higher. Now, that can be done. It has to be approved. There's an amendment process. But clearly, we don't want that. We want projects that what you say in your proposal, you are going to start on day one, and you are going to finish when you say you're going to finish. So be mindful of that. It's worth probably running through the reasons why projects get delayed and require more time. And here's a few we've got here. Internal factors, project manager hired late. Absolutely, this is going to slow you down. Again, it can be challenging because as an organization, you don't want to commence recruitment until you know for absolute sure that you've got the green light for the project. And so, you don't start recruitment. Recruitment can take quite a while. And as a result, you might not get your project manager in for 6 months, 9 months, or something like that. That is understandable. To mitigate that, we would very much encourage you to ensure that there is an interim lead on the project. There should be someone who led in the application, whether it's that same person or you have someone who is holding the baby, is the midwife at this stage, so that the project does start on day one. It doesn't have to, oh, well, we've got nobody, so we can't start. It has to start on day one so that those early milestones are still going to be on track. Very, very important that for year one. Other internal factors that can cause delays: coordination effort with many partners. Again, yeah, you need to be real, and that if you are going to have loads and loads of partners, the amount of coordination that takes is a lot, and it can make it very, very hard to get dates for meetings and so on. So be mindful of that and build that into your time frame planning. Changes in employees or partners. Again, these are risks that go with all projects: turnover of staff and so on. Overload of project manager. I made that point. Under resourcing, I'll talk about that in a minute. External factors that can slow things down. Approval processes. This was mentioned, I think, by Gustavo, and I'm going to expand on this because this is a big one. Permits, permissions, licensing, things like that. They can take forever, and forever is not a word that we use in a project. So be mindful of that when you're putting together your time frame. Tendering, well, obviously procurement. There's very strict procurement rules that we all abide by. So that can be something that can slow things down. Seasonal limitations. Things can only be done at certain times of the year. Weather, so outside work, trivial nature projects can slow things down. Supply chains. And of course, you get the odd global pandemic, which really can mess things up. So yeah, you get the message. Plan a buffer time when you are putting together the duration for your project. Again, I'm reiterating some basic stuff, but it's worth saying them again. In project management, adherence to the project plan. Yeah, and we all use project management tools. There's loads of them out there. Choose your favorite one that works for you, and yeah, manage your project. That's absolutely critical. Risk, I mentioned it there. Identify, then mitigate. Again, all part of good project management. Ensure all partners are involved in this. They are doing their own. Ensure that they do, and also it's an ongoing thing. You have to review it constantly. Resources, make sure human financial resources are sufficient. Absolutely, this is about the budget, that you are putting in place enough. Don't cut yourself short. Don't say, I sure will manage with that. No, you are going to come short, because bearing in mind, if you are out of money, if you've under budgeted, you're going to have to find that money, the extra money, somewhere else. The commission will not give you any more money than will be in the grant agreement. Milestones and deliverables. Know the difference. It's surprising the number of projects that we still see people get this confused. They are quite different. A milestone is a stage where you aim to be at by a certain time, and a deliverable is an output. Don't have too many. Again, the danger is you paralyze yourself with analysis. Ensure you're very clear that what the deliverable will be from this action. It's not an afterthought. It's what will we produce that we will submit as the deliverable for this action. Objectives, we talked a lot about that earlier. Be ambitious, as Gustavo said, absolutely. Catch the eye, be ambitious, but I caveat that with keep it real. Do not overpromise. Again, the temptation might be to promise the world, and it's like, yeah, guys, you're not going to do that. So get that sweet spot between ambition and reality. Smart. Coherence. Project applications now are in work packages, so ensure that they fit together well, and they clear link obviously with the objectives. Sustainability. Oh, there's a whole seminar in itself. Think carefully. You will be asked to detail your sustainability plans for this project. At the end of the project, the life money stops. What next? What next? How is this going to keep going? If you do not show evidence that there is a credible plan to keep this going, your score is going to go down and you're not going to get funded. So think carefully about the longer term, those objectives beyond life. You will be required to produce an afterlife plan, it's called, as an output. Replication, absolutely essential as well. So again, not an afterthought. Replication has to be considered very carefully in your application. How do you plan to see your genius idea or your fabulous piece of work being replicated within Ireland, within the EU? So think carefully of that. And if you've got perhaps already established networks where, yeah, you've got one eye on, they could do this, they're keen on this, nice one. Okay, yeah, structure. A lot of people ask questions on this. There's no typical structure, I would say, no right or wrong. The partnership, you can do it on your own. You can just be a single beneficiary, or you can be obviously a partnership. So coordinating beneficiary is the lead, and the partners are associated beneficiaries. Now, just to be clear, all partners, all beneficiaries are beneficiaries of the funding, but they all have to do something in the project. They all will have action. There's another entity called a co-financer who can chip in extra finance, but they don't necessarily, well, they won't do any work, but they are just part of the funding package. Have you got the right mix? Too few, too many? Concentrate on essential partners? Absolutely. One of the issues here can sometimes be the statutory authorities. If you're not a statutory authority, and getting their support, you're going to need their support anyway, and we would expect that through, say, a letter of support as a minimum. But if you got them perhaps on your steering group, even if they weren't project partners, but even better as a project partner, that is, I think, a big help. Now, they will tell you, they will say, just because we're part of the project doesn't mean to say everything is fine. We still have to do our statutory role, but still, they are key players to have at the very least on your steering group, I would say, to be honest. Awareness. Do your partners know what's expected of them administratively? This is a really good point again. There is a tendency to say, oh, we're only an associate beneficiary, so we just kind of step back and we do what we're told to do. And the coordinating beneficiary does everything, project manager and so on. No, that has to be discouraged, I would say. They need to have ownership of their responsibilities as well. As part of that, we ask, or I think we recommend, that you have a partnership agreement or consortium agreement for your partnership. And in that, obviously, you spell out the responsibilities for each partner. The money, yeah, absolutely. Check your partner's financial credentials, that they're good for the contributions. It would be, it's a serious pain if they suddenly say we're having serious cash flow problems, or we've gone bust or something like that. So that's your responsibility to ensure that your partners are solid and are going to be good for their contributions. Sharing, make partners aware. Yeah, so obviously money will, the EU finance comes usually in 3 tranches. You get the first tranche up front when you sign the grant agreement. And then, as I said, that midterm report, remember, that will be the story so far. Everything fine, good. We'll give you the second tranche. EC will give you the second tranche. And then the final tranche is right at the end. Again, partners need to be aware that final tranche is not until everyone is absolutely happy after final report submission, all the deliverables, all the requirements are done, and that's when you get the final. That's when you get the final tranche. So again, smaller outfits, smaller associated beneficiaries need to be aware that that might be a bit of a squeeze on their cash flow. So bear that in mind. Other EU member state partners, again, this is absolutely, it's often encouraged to some extent to have your partners in other member states as well. Very good for replication and networking and so on. But that, carries with it challenges. So there will be more effort perhaps in coordination, communications challenges, possibly with different languages. All things to be mindful of. There's no typical budget. N, what used to be called N, basically the non-nature projects, tended to be smaller budgets. The nature kind of tends to be trending upwards. There are a lot of bigger funded nature projects now. Things to be mindful of. Personnel costs too low. Absolutely. So make sure your personnel costs are going to be based on your organization's standard daily rates for this person, for a project manager, for a finance manager, for a comms manager, or whatever. But make sure, obviously, you've got the right rate, and make sure that you put in enough days for those people to do these actions. The plan budget needs to include project management costs, absolutely, and financial management costs. Here is another top tip. So you're going to have a full-time project manager, and you're going to have a finance officer manager. I would strongly recommend that person is also full-time. On top of that, for most of my projects have been nature biodiversity, and for those communications, you need serious expertise in communication, particularly digital communications nowadays, as part of the team. And so don't underestimate that. Don't just shove that onto the project manager. That is something that you need standalone expertise in my view, for nature projects. And also community engagement. If it is work where bringing the community with you, whether it's the community or specifically farmers or whatever, having staff on the team who are out there working with the community, absolutely, the benefits of that are immeasurable. So be mindful of that. External assistance. So yeah, I mean, if you're under-resourced in your financial management, you might need to outsource that and bring in a contractor to help you with the external assistance. That often happens in other member states. But if not, that should be done obviously in-house. Inflation, bearing in mind these projects are going to run for a good few years, and costs are going to change. So you need to build this in. You might not be making a major purchase or doing a major piece of work till year 4 or 5. Costs could be quite different in that time. So yeah, contingency, think about what might go wrong. So cost of energy, raw materials, pandemics, all these things, they're a risk. They're a risk, of course. So mitigate that risk when you're putting together your budget. Practical information about the application. So yeah, I mentioned deliverables worth. Just absolutely getting these defined again. Remember, deliverables are products, so a report, an action plan. Training materials, fair enough, might not be entirely electronic, but most of them are nowadays, videos and so on. And you will be submitting them at an ongoing basis to the portal. And milestones, permissions granted. That's the big one. Systems built, you know, a lot of non-nature projects might be building some prototype or something. Nature projects restoring so many hectares out of 100 or whatever. So just getting that progress on course. That's key milestones there. Stakeholder consultations, absolutely year 1. You know, that's absolutely basic stuff for year 1. And again, remember having the staff, having the community engagement people in place to lead on that aspect of it. Focus on the key deliverables, keep it simple. There is a tendency to say, oh yeah, we could do that because it's maybe perhaps quite easy, quite convenient, and we're kind of doing it anyway. No. Remember, it's what is the project about? What's the objectives? What are these deliverables directly coming from the action, which is directly related to the objective? Keep that clarity, coherence. Don't have them all at the end of the project as well, because obviously that just creates huge challenges for bottlenecks for completion, delivery, and so on. Yeah, the permissions. So yeah, this is if there's one message to take home with, it is about permissions and procedures. They often take longer than you think. By God, they do. If you can get agreements with authorities, remember I mentioned that in advance, then do so. Yeah, I mentioned that. You need to get the authority on board as a partner. Costs of permits, you weren't aware you're going to need an EIA, and you're going to have to hire somebody to do that. So watch out for that. And that's having the human resources time buffers to deal with that. If you're buying land, some nature projects have to, the only way to do a certain piece of work on a certain area is to buy that land. That can be done through the LIFE program. I mean, you're in a minefield here with buying land in Ireland. Pre-negotiate with landowners. Again, that has to be done obviously very sensitively, because they find out that you've got a project that needs to buy their land, then suddenly they've got some serious leverage. You will have a budget, and you will not be able to go beyond that. You won't have that money. So in any pre-negotiations, that probably would have to be made clear. And yeah, if there's multiple ownership, yeah, it's minefield. Try and avoid that if at all possible. So there we go. I've rattled through who we are, what we do. As I said, we're here to help. If you get to the green light, and hopefully a lot of those tips you'll consider them as you go into your application. But I just want to say final few words is, yeah, I mean, I have been involved in this program for an awful long time, and it's a fantastic program. I highly recommend it. It's achieved amazing things over 30 years. I've seen so many projects that have gone on, which have replicated, which have sustained and done some great things. And it's getting better. I think they've fine-tuned the way it's set up now, and it's obviously expanded into the clean energy program, which I think is fantastic. A lot of people go, oh, LIFE, it's very administrative, it's very tedious in that regard. I beg to differ, and I think a big part of that, if I dare blow our own trumpet, is this role of a monitoring team. I think other programs have monitoring teams, but the way LIFE is set up is we are quite heavily involved in the implementation phase. And I'd like to think, and I think the feedback backs this up, that that this is a real benefit to the program, and projects that applicants that may be worried about, oh God, it looks awfully complicated. You've got a monitoring team that will not necessarily hold your hand through the whole thing, but certainly, we are there to help you. So thank you very much, and the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Neil. I just have to say, you made some excellent points, and as someone who's been involved in various EU funding over the last 10 years, just to reiterate some things, people look for partners because of their technical expertise and knowledge, and of course that's important, but I wouldn't downplay the importance of, if you are looking for a partner with the administrative experience also, and that financial reporting is highly valuable, and someone who's done it before, who's been involved in maybe a university, who's done other EU funding, it can be so valuable. Also, I'd say just one other point, numerous projects, as Neil was saying, get delayed for various reasons and sometimes completely out of their control. If you are getting co-financing from a government department, for example, give them the heads up. It may not be as simple as, they've set aside your budget and it will simply roll over. They may have to go back to finance, get it secured for the following year if there is an extension. So, work with your financial partners, especially if they're in a sort of government role, because things do take longer. It's not a case of simply, getting stuff signed off. It has to go to finance, get past legal, go up the line. So those are some recommendations from our side. So I hope no one is too daunted. I now have 2 projects who, have gone through it all. They've put in their final reports, and as they were co-financed through the Climate Action Fund, I was lucky enough to read the final reports before sign off for their final payments. Both great examples of how to do reporting right. First up, we have the Rediscovery Centre and Claire. So Claire is the Rediscovery Centre's Policy and Research Director, leading the research and education teams on providing an evidence base for policy development, supporting circular living models and delivering excellence in circular economy education in Ireland and internationally. Claire has over 20 years of experience in the sector, has delivered multiple national and international circular economy research projects, and sits on a number of European and national advisory groups, and is a fellow with the Chartered Institute of Waste Management. So over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Aideen, and it's a real pleasure to be able to share with you the life-funded projects that we have led at the Rediscovery Centre. We actually have 2 projects, so I thought I would touch on our earlier project as well, and the most recent one that Aideen mentioned. The report has just been submitted. So I would absolutely echo Neil's words that the Life Fund is a fantastic fund, and for us here at the Rediscovery Centre, it has been transformative in terms of our activities. And we were reflecting on the value of life funding earlier, and thought really what it does is it provides the investment that allows organisations like ours to carry out research and really investigate the best practice, and then use that to stimulate innovation and deliver a really practical output. And that idea of turning research into practical outputs, or translational research, is really core to a lot of the work that we do here, but isn't possible without funding like LIFE. As I said, we've actually had LIFE funding underpin 2 major transformations here at the centre. The first one was a physical transformation of our building into Europe's first 3-dimensional textbooks and demonstration centre for circular economy. And the second most recent project was our digital transformation, which led to our communications excellence. So I'll just touch on both as well. At the Rediscovery Centre, we are the National Centre for Circular Economy, and our mission is to lead the transition to the circular economy. And we aim to reach a society that is fair, inclusive, and thrives within natural resource limits. We see the circular transition as absolutely essential to climate action. And of course, climate change is one of the biggest challenges of the 21st century. I'm sure all of you are very much aware of that. We currently consume around 100 billion tonnes of materials per year, and that consumption is leading to around half, all studies differ, of global greenhouse gas emissions and 90% of biodiversity loss. So we absolutely need to change away from this linear system towards the circular model, which is a more sustainable model. But we have to be able to bring, of course, all of society along with it. And we want to support communities through that shift as well. We know people are concerned about climate change and the circular economy, but feel powerless or lack the knowledge, or simply don't know where to start. So they need support. And we want to help support that as the Rediscovery Centre, to support communities to deliver impactful action at local level. And we do that through education, demonstration, advocacy, and collaboration. And our projects that were supported by LIFE really demonstrate all of that. So our first project that I will just mention briefly was the Wiser Life project. And this enabled us to develop a demonstration centre that could showcase and inspire people and engage people in circular economy. This project saw the transformation of the old Ballymun boiler house, which in its heyday, was actually the first of its kind, or state of the art district heating scheme, boiler house for the district heating scheme here in Ballymun. And the transformation then allowed the complete redevelopment of this industrial space into, as I said, a visitors centre or demonstration centre. This was done with LIFE funding, was led by the Rediscovery Centre, and as you can see, the co-beneficiary was Dublin City Council, who owns the building, and it was co-financed by the department. The outputs from this project included developing best practice guidelines on refurbishing projects of buildings for reuse, recycling, and sustainable materials. And as I said, we're able to carry out quite a lot of research into what could be retained for reuse in a building like this. What are the sustainable materials that can be used instead in a refurbishment project? And for example, just the retention of the concrete floors and the steel beams in this building has enabled 50 tonnes of carbon to be saved. It is also the first public building to use hempcrete. And so it has become a demonstration centre, and it brought together all of the Rediscovery Centre's activities, reuse and repair workshops, cafe, eco-store, and visitors centre and education team and research work all into one place. It is a really novel educational space and innovative visitors experience. What we hope it does is inspire and show people where they can get started on their circular journey. The lasting impact was mentioned quite a few times already, so put together some figures. Since the building opened in 2017, we've had over 17,000 visitors through tours and workshops. We've reached over 157,000 students and teachers through the educational programme, supported over 300 trainees and volunteers here, and provided vocational training and facilitated their progression into further education. 70 tonnes of products have been reused in fashion, bikes, furniture and paint, and that's led to around 180 tonnes of carbon being avoided. And as I said, we became the national centre when everything came together in this incredible facility. And I suppose really importantly, we've had huge interest in replicating this project, replicating the activities that we have and developing hubs across the country, and we're working on that at the moment. Moving on to the more recent project. This project allowed us to deliver a modern and robust digital presence for the centre, building on best practice and all of our experience to date, and that was run from 2021 to 2023. As Aideen mentioned, this was funded through a slightly different call, which was the call for proposals from NGOs on the European Green Deal. And it was a reaction to, I suppose, the advent of COVID-19. So of course, as you know, the Green Deal looks for a sustainable economy, decoupling growth from resource consumption and to protect health and well-being. And when COVID hit, the Commission recognised that this seriously impacted the capacity of NGOs to continue to do their work on the Green Deal and to facilitate the just transition. So this specific call was designed to reinforce capacity for NGOs and to strengthen civil society. As a demonstration centre, and I just showed you the facility that we have, of course, COVID seriously impacted our ability to reach people physically in person at the centre. And so we saw it as a fantastic opportunity to change our tack and really develop expertise in digital and online reach, and to tackle the low levels of awareness and low levels of circularity that we see in Ireland, or did see in Ireland. So what the project involved was, again, that really essential upfront research that allowed us to see what does excellence in communications look like, to understand the citizen in Ireland, and to listen to Irish citizens to understand what level of knowledge do they have about circular economy, how do they already engage in it, where are the key entry points, and who do they trust, and so on. And I'll share a little bit of that as well. It enabled us to explore marketing tools like Salesforce, and to look at customer journeys and become really sophisticated in these areas of comms and marketing that are traditionally held by, big agencies or large companies. It allowed us to completely revisit our branding, and you can see some of that in this slide deck and on our website and across, hopefully, all of our communications as well, and really professionalize the look and feel of our work. And we were able to develop and deliver an ultra-low carbon website, which I'll touch on as well. So as I mentioned, we were able to conduct research into the Irish citizen and what do they understand about the circular economy. We did our first market research through this project in 2021-22, and we were able to repeat it thanks to Department of Environment funding in 2023. And what you can see here is actually the comparison between those two, and the ability to be able to develop this insight and to continue to develop these insights is really essential in understanding trends and where things are going. So this project absolutely stimulated all of this work. So currently we know or understand that around 41% of people in Ireland have heard of that term, circular economy. So there's relatively good name recognition. And this has actually grown since the first market survey as part of the Direct Life project, which found only 25% had heard of it. So it's really encouraging to see a growth in awareness in Ireland of this terminology. And this means around 1.6 million people have heard about circular economy, which is a terrific starting point. There are actually so many insights from this research. It is available up on our website, but I'll just share one other thing because we did both quantitative and qualitative analysis. And what we found through the qualitative analysis is that scientists are the most trusted sources of information, as are educators, family, and friends. And these kinds of insights really help in terms of designing information campaigns about circular economy, who they come from, the channels we use, the language we use, and the messaging. So we have a very rich source of data now to build on in terms of communications, and it's all open to all circular communicators as well. In terms of the website, the reason why we wanted to look specifically at low carbon websites, I guess, is because we're aware of the huge impact that the internet is having in terms of energy demand, as well as demand for data storage, data transmission, and devices. So it's a highly impactful, but behind the scenes often. And in Ireland in particular, of course, we have very high energy demand from data centers, and that is created, I suppose, that demand from our use of the internet. So by having low carbon, by having low energy websites, we're able to help reduce that demand, and using less data also helps to reduce that demand. So we explored and carried out research into the design of low carbon websites, and we were able to find out quite a lot of tips on how to reduce the impact of a website through, for example, graphics. And you can see here, there's very specific type of graphics that have very, very low impact. We removed a lot of videos, a lot of photos from the site, used specific types of font. Hosting is also really important, functionality of behind the scenes website, and so much more. And we actually have a recording of our low carbon website journey up on our website. We'd be very happy to share that to go into much more detail if you're interested. We have had huge amount of interest in this design and the concepts behind it. And I think we're already starting to see some replication across other larger organizations of this model as well, which is really encouraging. So overall, the impact of the project of Direct Life has been an absolute transformation in how we deliver communications, our marketing, our citizen engagement. It has established us as a leading insight into circular communications, and in turn, this has given us the capacity to deliver services on communication. So it has a huge and ongoing impact in terms of our position as circular communicators. We're very, very grateful to all of the team at Elmen and also at Cinea for the support for both projects. Very happy to answer any questions, and would really like to invite you to visit us virtually or physically through the two projects that I've mentioned already. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was really informative. Yes, and please, if anyone has any questions, the link to the Slido is in the chat, or you can even ask them in the chat or ask out loud when we get to the Q&A session. Next, we have our second project that we'll be looking at that has also recently finished. So it's the Legacy for Life, and we have Professor John Sweeney. So Professor Sweeney has been at Newf University since 1978. He has taught also at a number of universities in North America and Africa, and has published over 100 scientific papers and authored, edited or co-authored 4 texts on various aspects of climatology and climate change in Ireland. He has served as president of the Irish Meteorological Society, the Geographical Society of Ireland, as well as being the Irish representative on a number of European academic bodies. He has contributed to reports of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and is also a regular contributor to print and broadcast media on matters relating to climate change, science and policy. So I welcome Professor Sweeney. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aideen. Very much like the previous presentation by Claire, this was also one of the 2 national projects for NGOs that were funded as part of the response of the Commission to COVID. And specifically, you can see there was a lot of very detailed requirements in terms of the eligibility for particular organizations in terms of their employees, their income levels, and in terms of their national reach, if you like. This was funded jointly. Of course, it was co-funded as well by 2 government departments and the European Climate Foundation. You've seen this diagram already, I know, but the particular angles that we were taking for this particular project from the European Green Deal was the biodiversity and ecosystems for one work package, which was designed to promote the establishment of a pond network across Ireland. Ponds are incredibly important as biodiversity refugia and as biodiversity richness, they're incredibly rich as well. The second theme then for work package 2 was on farm to fork, and we were promoting organic agriculture to the wider farming community as part of that. And then thirdly, conscious of the fact that local authorities are required to comply with local action plans in climate, we were using the increased climate ambition hook, if you like, there to develop methodology and models to help local authorities in their climate action plans and in their low carbon town planning, because each local authority in Ireland has to designate one of the towns or areas within its jurisdiction for low carbon development. So to take those in turn, the pond network one, first of all, our first task there was to establish a network of local authorities and other bodies committed to protecting and creating ponds on public lands. We did restrict ourselves to public lands because of the insurance difficulties that inevitably arise on private lands in terms of access, in terms of health and safety and so on. So our first task was in getting at least into the local authority development plans, the local area plans as much as possible, an objective for the insertion into those plans of pond developments as part of their strategy. And we did that with 5 county development plans and local area plans and made submissions as well. We also wanted to see where we were at in Ireland in terms of pond projects, because we've had a history of some pond projects in the past, such as the Bride project, and we wanted to do a survey to see just how they were faring and to catalogue past projects in Ireland. And we got a large response to that survey, which was part of the analysis. But our main issue, I suppose, was to try and establish demonstration site locations in conjunction with local community groups around Ireland. And we've done that, as you can see, at 7 demo sites, where it's almost like citizen science involvement as well. And that was important because we want this to be sustainable. We want it to be something that the community buys into as well. And it was done in conjunction with community groups, local authorities, and operational staff from the project as well. So as part of that, we had a number of monitoring workshops and 22, in fact, events around the country over the course of the 2 years. We also helped advise in terms of communities that wanted themselves to go out and dig a pond, and this was done in one area at least. Our main mission, I suppose, was to bring to the public through the educational medium the importance of ponds for wildlife. And this particular poster, which we developed quite early on, proved to be unbelievably popular. We can't keep pace with the demand for it at the moment. We've printed 7,000 copies, and still we can't meet the demand. It's going through schools, it's going through various educational establishments, and proving a highly popular output for the project. As is this one, which is a more practical one for people who are wanting to build their own pond. How do you go about it? What do you get concerned with in terms of invasive species? What do you get concerned with in terms of stopping it becoming overgrown, and so on? So that's, again, a very popular educational outlet as a deliverable from the project. More conventional dissemination projects, of course, come in the form of reports, and we have produced a large report here for local authorities, because we found local authorities are really pushing the door open in this area. There's a very strong enthusiasm on the part of local authorities for building ponds in their own area. And how do you go about it? What do you need to watch out for? So we produced a guide for them here. And we also produced the outputs of our survey, of course, in terms of a booklet as well. I think the major output from this particular work package, however, was the first Irish Pond Manual, which is a detailed guide. It's about 100 pages long, of how you go about creating, managing ponds in Ireland. And it builds on some of the work that has been done by the Freshwater Habitats Trust in the UK, but it's really more designed to be orientated towards the Irish situation. So I think this is going to be an important deliverable into the future from this project. Work package 2 then was Farm to Fork, and here we were promoting organic agriculture as the direction which Irish agriculture might need to consider going more, if you like, energetically in the future to comply with various climate legislations and also to be more sustainable. So our first objective there was, again, consultation with a lot of the stakeholders, especially in the food industry here. We contacted 33 of them. We interviewed 27 of them. And having done that from the commercial side, we then set out to do it from the farmer, from the bottom up, if you like, looking at a number of different organic operations in Ireland, be they livestock, be they vegetable, be they horticulture, and looking at what kind of issues they had in terms of their transition to organic agriculture. And from that, we then, if you like, discovered or delineated, I suppose, best practice examples of each of those categories around the country, with multiple visits to them, with cooperation from the people in DAF as well. And we promoted some of those issues in conferences, including the National Ploughing Conference, BioFac, the National Organic Training Skills Conference, and so on. So it was a kind of a very successful, if you like, communication from an environmental organization, which you normally wouldn't associate with agricultural promotion, which was something that I think worked out extremely well. And in terms of outputs from that, unorganic, what were the barriers to them? How did they overcome those barriers? How are they doing now? And there's a lovely little couple of pages on each of those different types of farms, which gives, I think, useful information to farmers who are thinking about making the transition to organic agriculture. And again, that's proven a very popular little booklet. Farming. So we produced a book here designed for primary schools and even the higher up echelons of primary schools, on what the characteristics of an organic farm are, what the pros and cons of them are. And we printed 900 of those to date. and they've gone widely into the Green School system, for example, and to various educational establishments. So again, that's about 30 pages of an output from that particular leg of the project. And then lastly, our work package 3, looking at climate mitigation. As I mentioned, each local authority has responsibilities for their own climate action plan, and they have been guided in the decarbonisation journey by methodologies which have been developed initially from CODIMA. We wanted to give them a little more help in actually going down that road, because once you start following a methodology, you encounter data problems, you encounter questions of access to data, you encounter all kinds of other methodological problems. So here we have a handbook, if you like, for local authorities to help them planning for urban decarbonisation schemes. And we were also quite conscious of the fact that there's a big area outside the urban areas. So we wanted to look as well at what motivates people in the in the rural areas and smaller communities. And we chose a case study here of Ballyvaughan in County Clare. We presented what their carbon emissions were. And you can work it out very much from the census data, the type of housing, the transport, and so on. And you can give people choices. And when we did that, we discovered that, maybe we could go a bit further. And here we started looking at one designated town, which is Kildare's low carbon development town, which is Maynooth. And we developed a carbon calculator for the town. And here, this is many advantages. It brings people in terms of the community into play, in terms of consulting with the community as well. Each of those black lines you can see on the map there are small area census units, for which we have a great deal of data available from the census. We can marry it up with transport data, car ownership, and so on. And we can tell what the existing emissions are from each of those small areas and aggregate them at a town level. And what we did was we developed a lever-based system to ask people, well, what would you like to do in terms of achieving your objectives at low carbon town development scale? And what you find here is, we have a lever-based system where they might decide the best thing to do might be to go to B2, BERs. We might prioritize social housing. There might be a specific area here that they pull the lever across to decide how much carbon they want to save from transport or commercial activity or agriculture or public services. And when you add those all up, those movements, you get an idea of what the choices they've made amount to. And that's public consultation, because it means that we can then characterize those people's choices as a community consensus to some extent. But we save their responses, we save them anonymously. We know by age, we know by occupation, we know by where they live, what their choices are. So it gives us a feel for what kind of, if you like, hard choices and easy choices people are going to have to make at local area units to try and get to the end product, which as a country we're obliged to do, and which our carbon budgets legally mandate us to do as well. So that was a very useful output. We're still, if you like, developing that to some extent. So in summary then, our impacts, achievements and sustainability, well, lots of impacts in terms of the sensitization of people to ponds, capacity and development and maintenance of ponds have been enhanced. We know that we've got achievements in terms of dissemination events and the development of new ponds as ongoing biodiversity and educational assets. And indeed, here we found that we're pushing at an open door, as I said, for a lot of the sort of potential sustainability aspects of it have really been coming back to us. For organic agriculture, I think we've been seeing outputs which will be useful for shaping future agricultural incentives, future organic agricultural incentives for farmers to make the switch. and useful for the nation's adherence to sectoral emission targets. But a lot of stakeholder consultation, a lot of best practice examples, a lot of awareness finding of where we are in terms of that journey away from perhaps intensive agriculture to a more sustainable and diverse form of agriculture. And the same with finally our work package 3 on climate mitigation. Again, we're finding huge demand for the carbon calculator. We can customize it, of course, to any area because we simply are accessing standard data from Census 22. So we can make a lot of useful contributions, we feel, for many parts of Ireland at local authority level who want to use it. We've also got these outreach programs for local authorities in planning their low carbon development plan, and lots of maybe down the road commercialization opportunities for that software to be customized elsewhere. So all in all, we're very happy with the outputs which we achieved in 2 years from a very small number of people. We're grateful for our co-financiers for helping us to do that. And we're grateful also for Neil, who has piloted, if you like, our supervision throughout that process. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. That was really informative and great to see life projects that you can easily see how it will live on for a long time after you finish. So legacy is certainly correct in that case. I'd really encourage everyone now, whilst John and Claire, they've been through the entire process. So any questions, please get in. Just so I don't put them on the spot during the Q&A, one question I would like to ask, and just give them time to think about it, is if there's anything you would have done differently, what would it be? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So our final speaker before our Q&A is Emma Mercer. So Emma's responsible for me travelling all around the country. So I thank her for that, to promote life. Emma is the Senior EU Programmes Manager at the REAL. She's Ireland's national, which is Ireland's National Association for the Charity, Community and Social Enterprise sector. She oversees the delivery of Access Europe, a support and capacity building programme for the sector funded by the Department of Foreign Affairs that helps organisations to access and manage EU funding. So over to you, Emma.
Thank you very much, Eugene, and you're welcome for all those trips around Ireland. Yeah, I'll just share a couple of slides. You've touched on a couple of points already, but just to say, that I'm here today from the WHEEL, so Ireland's National Association for Community, Charity and Social Enterprise Organisations. So we're a representative body, I suppose. First and foremost, we represent the needs of 2,400 members. But we're also a training organisation, and we provide a range of different supports and services to help our members and the wider sector to develop and grow and reach their full potential. So underneath one of those, I suppose one of those supports is Access Europe. So as Aideen said, it's a support service. It's kind of a one-stop shop for all of your EU funding needs. If you're interested in starting or scaling up your EU funding journey and you're not sure where to start, that's what Access Europe is for. So you're welcome to reach out to us, and it's funded by the Department of Foreign Affairs. And we talk about it's for civil society, which, you look at the WHEEL's target groups is obviously charities, community groups, social enterprises, but civil society is much broader than that. There's a recognition that, within EU funding, I think we've seen that from the different case studies and everything that we've heard about today, that, we're talking about community representatives, yes, but also public bodies, universities, other kind of organizations that are all working towards similar goals, but that need support to work together and to access the information and advice that they need. So yeah, it was set up, I suppose, in a recognition, and this again has also been referred to today, that EU funding can be incredibly complex. For anybody who maybe is completely new to it and they're listening in today, it's a lot of information. It can be very overwhelming, and it does require an investment up front. I always kind of say when I'm talking about EU funding that it is not a quick fix. It is a long-term investment into your organization. One thing that we do note, and we've worked with hundreds of organizations around their EU funding plans, is that once an organization gets good at EU funding and they kind of crack it and get, they realize how to do it and they start setting up their systems, they do tend to go back to it again and again. So, as much as if you look at it as a singular opportunity, you can see it and be like, oh, well, that's a huge amount of work to put in for one project. But if you see it as potentially a source of funding that your organization is going to use for years and years to come, then it definitely makes sense to make that investment up front in the capacity building piece. And there is a lot of support available to help you do that. There's the national contact points for each of the program. So that includes Aideen and her colleagues at DECC. That can support you when it comes to the specific programs and all the logistics and the details of that program. And then you have Access Europe that is there to kind of be that central hub where, say you don't really know where your project idea belongs and you're not sure which program you want to go for yet, you can come to us and explain to us what you do and what you're interested in, and we can help signpost you to the relevant European program, which could be LIFE, or it could be any number of other programs. The thing about EU funding that is kind of confusing is that it's not necessarily that intuitive. You could have an idea for an environmental project or a climate related project and think, okay, that's a LIFE project because that's the EU's program for all things environment and climate. But there's also other programs that also fund these kinds of activities. So, for example, if your project is more educational in nature and it's more about kind of informing people or engaging a specific group around education or green issues, then maybe it's more of an Erasmus project. If it's more about interregional cooperation in a specific area, it could be an Interreg project. So again, it's just not a very intuitive type of funding. And for each individual to try and figure it out on their own is a huge amount of research and kind of going down rabbit holes and maybe finding that certain funds aren't for them, and after having done a lot of research. So our goal is to really save people a lot of that bother. So there's no need to go down those rabbit holes of trying to figure out, well, is this program for me, or should I be more looking at this one, and does my idea fit under this program, or is it more suitable for this one? You don't have to worry about that. You can come to us in Access Europe. We can listen to your idea. We can tell you, okay, this sounds like a project that fits under the LIFE program. You need to go and talk to Aideen and her colleagues. Or it belongs in this other program, and we can signpost effectively to that. So we also provide some other supports, and I'll talk about those in a moment. But that advice function, that kind of one-stop shop for finding your path within EU funding, is probably, I suppose, the most valuable piece, and it's what originally kind of inspired Access Europe, was because people were missing out on these opportunities purely because they couldn't navigate a landscape that can be so confusing. And so we're here to remove those barriers and help groups to tap into those opportunities. So just to say, I kind of mentioned this already, but we're very much, yes, we're working with civil society and charities and community groups and things like that, but we're also working with public bodies. We're also working with research and academia, and we work very closely with the national contact points. And we always defer to them. They're 100% the experts on their individual programs, but I suppose the missing piece that often makes it difficult is knowing which program your project belongs in. So you don't necessarily know to go and talk to the national contact point until you know where your program belongs, or where your project idea belongs. So that, again, that's where we can kind of help to fill the gap. So we're very much kind of a central hub, connecting all of those different kind of stakeholders in this whole EU funding space. And I suppose, I've touched on this already in that we're kind of a central advice service, but in terms of the actual kind of tangible supports that we can offer, so there's a huge amount of kind of research that we do on behalf of the sector or anybody that's interested in EU funding. So we provide that information based on research. So you can find that on our website. So we do have an EU funding guide on our website. It's accesseurope.ie. Very easy to find. So we kind of search through all the programs. We try to simplify it as much as possible and kind of put it, take out the EU jargon as much as possible. And we present all of that on our website in a way that is hopefully easier to navigate and saves people going through, you know, several websites. They can kind of come and find it all in one place. And then we also have a free monthly newsletter where we compile all of the different EU funding opportunities that are applicable to civil society, and we disseminate that in a monthly newsletter. So even if, you know, if you take one thing from this, maybe just subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you can at least be kept informed about what's coming up in terms of deadlines, because that can be a job in and of itself, just to monitor everything that's going on across several different programs. So having one newsletter as opposed to 10 newsletters to subscribe to or to monitor can be really helpful. We also do a lot of different events and trainings. So everything from kind of high level conferences about EU funding potential and themes, or deep dives into specific topics, right down to, you know, how to write an application, how to build a consortium, those kind of practical guides. So we do a lot of that kind of thing. We also do a lot of kind of bringing together different stakeholders, as you know, as you saw there, the public bodies, the universities and things like that, bringing them together with civil society and trying to get them working together. We provide the help desk support, as I said, so you can call me or one of my colleagues, and we will, you can email us. It's europe@wheel.ie. It's very, or you can email emma@wheel.ie as well. And you can set up meetings with us to kind of scope out what is your EU funding potential, you know, where does your idea belong within the world of EU funding? Should you be going to life, or is it better to do something maybe smaller scale first through the likes of it? So we can kind of advise you about that, but we can also provide help desk support for the duration of your kind of EU funding experience, basically until you don't need us anymore. So, you know, we're very lucky in Ireland. We have excellent national contact points who do provide a lot of really excellent support and can kind of answer any technical questions or anything like that that you might have in the lead up to your application. But if you need an additional layer of support, so for example, something that we can offer that most of the time the national contact points certainly can't offer because they're too busy, is application review. So, you know, if you give us enough time, we can do a review of your application to kind of check it for quality and help you maximize some points and stuff like that. So we try to kind of fill in the gaps that the national contact points can't provide, either because they have to be very careful and impartial and treat all applicants the same, or because they simply just don't have the time and capacity leading up to deadlines. So we try to kind of fill in those gaps as much as we can and kind of do that hand holding at the beginning. And then also once a project is funded, we can also help you in terms of setting up systems, you know, how to monitor your impact, how to set up your financial reporting system, stuff like that. And even things like that come up, maybe you're having trouble with your consortium or you're not sure how to do this. I suppose the support that we can provide is more as peers, I suppose, because the Wheel itself, who runs Access Europe, we're an organization that applies for EU funding. We've gone on our own EU funding journey. So, you know, when you're picking up the phone to me or one of my colleagues to talk about your EU funding experience or ask questions, you're kind of talking to us more in a peer capacity. So it allows us to kind of offer more general advice, informal advice, which can be really valuable, particularly if you're on your own doing this type of funding for the first time. Just being able to talk to somebody who's done it before can be really reassuring. And then finally, the kind of network building piece. So we do, obviously, partnership is key to European funding. We've heard about partnerships today and the results and the impact that experience can have. But it can be a real obstacle to people when they first get started. So we have a number of different things that we do. We do organize network building events, both online and in person, where you can connect with partners at European level or here in Ireland. We also have we do partnership training to help people kind of build a consortium, and we also have our database. We have a partner database on our website, accesseurope.ie, again, where you can upload a profile of your organization, and it encourages you to kind of present your organization in a way that, you know, in terms of what are you interested in EU funding, what do you want to achieve through it, what can you bring to a partnership. So it becomes a really useful communication tool then, where you can kind of present your organization. We push that out through Europe, through the various national contact points and networks and things like that. in the hopes that more Irish partners will be brought, or more Irish organizations will be brought in as partners to projects, which can be a really nice way to kind of get to know EU funding without taking on the responsibility of being an applicant. So we do that for you, but it can also be something that you use then to reach out to others in terms of, if there's interesting projects or organizations that you're keen to work with in Europe, that you can communicate with them and say, here's our profile, you can read all about us and our kind of EU funding ambitions and what we want to achieve with this type of funding. So that's kind of a broad snapshot of the supports that we offer. Obviously, everything is, like I said, it's accesseurope.ie. You can reach out to us at europe@wheel.ie. You can sign up to our newsletter on our website and all that kind of stuff. You can follow us on social media. It's at Europe Access on Twitter, or X as it's called now. And yeah, pretty much everything that we offer is free and available to everyone. So please do use it, I suppose. And that's it. Yeah, so I'm very happy to answer any questions afterwards. I'll hang around. And thank you, Aideen.
Thank you so much, Emma. Yeah, I can't recommend Emma, her colleagues, everyone at the Wheel and Access Europe enough. So please use the resources there. As I mentioned at the top of today, I will be announcing an opportunity that the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications will be offering, and we'll do that straight after the Q&A. So I'll just ask Kieran to share the Slido and we'll get straight into the Q&A. As I said, any additional comments, please put them in the chat or, raise your hand and feel free to ask as well. So that was actually our poll earlier. So we see nature and biodiversity and clean energy transition very popular amongst people here today. We'll go with the first question. And so when carrying out a project removing invasive species or another biodiversity related action, is land ownership required, or what agreement lease is needed? Gustavo, if I could go to you on that one.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so first of all, just to say that yes, okay, like some type of guarantee may be required. It just depends. It's actually up to the applicant to find the best way to implement the actions and sustain them in the future. It can be land purchase or land agreements. But I think the crucial thing here will be if the activities fall inside or outside of the Natura 2000 network, because it's not the same. So if it is, for example, an area-based project with restoration and so on, and they are outside the Natura 2000 network, well, first of all, they should only be for the improvement of the ecological coherence and connectivity of the network, okay? But in that case, a guarantee has to be provided in the long term. That could be through a commitment to give these sites the most appropriate, that can be legal or contractual protection. So legal, we're talking about designation. You buy land, so then by the end of the project, that has to be designated. And if it's contractual, then it's agreements that have to last for at least 30 years. So that we really ask for a guarantee that by the end of the project, these agreements or legal protection is in place. So our actions involve land purchase and habitat restoration. Okay, so yes, I said that the most appropriate legal protection. Now, okay, so this is outside of the Natura 2000. Now, outside of the Natura 2000, there are also some requirements, but yeah, they don't really relate to land purchase or agreement. Is just for the sustainability in general of the actions. Just that, okay, they have to be consistent with the conservation objectives and so on, but they don't directly relate to it. So I hope it's clear.
Okay, thank you so much, Gustavo. Move on to our second question. Can I apply for Just Transition Fund and Life? So just to explain, Just Transition Fund is for counties, Midland counties, and Salmon and East Belfast, it's not like East Galway. And there is a lot of overlap between life funding. You cannot get EU funding cover the same thing, so there can't be any double funding. As I said, there is that overlap. So if you had been looking into Just Transition Fund, but you fall outside of the counties it covers, then certainly look at life funding as an opportunity. Or if you're unsuccessful in the Just Transition Fund, please look at life funding. Technically, you could, as long as they're not covering the same thing.
Just to add one thing there, if you happen to actually apply for both programs, it is very important that that you include that information in the application. This is, double funding is like a serious issue. So it has to be there, and let alone if the funding is even partly granted, that is not compatible.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gustavo. For technical assistance replication, if my barrier is not having a piece of land necessary for my project, can I use this funding to purchase it?
I suppose it's me as well. No, unfortunately, no. Land purchase costs are not eligible for technical assisted replication. And this is something that is actually in the code document. So yeah, I think it's clear.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, and very important to read the core documents. And if you've any questions regarding the core documents, please contact us as the national contact point. My project covers 2 sub-programs. Can I apply for more than one? For example, climate mitigation and nature and biodiversity.
Okay, so for this, you should only submit the proposal under one of the sub-programs. Now, we understand that sometimes it can be difficult to select one of them. So the thing will be to look at what the policy legislation the proposal mainly targets, and then go for that one. But don't forget to include the synergies. Of course, if you have a doubt, then that means that there are obvious synergies there. Please, include them. There's like a specific section, and that can potentially trigger some additional points.
Perfect. Thank you so much. How do we find out who to talk to in the county council regarding clean energy? So I'll give that to Philip.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the councils are already involved in EU projects, and a lot of the councils, especially the bigger councils like Cork and Dublin, have dedicated EU liaison officers. Some councils use the energy agencies, so Dublin Council will use Codema, Waterford and Kilkenny would use the Southeastern Energy Agency, etc. So there are names available. I don't have names for everybody. And actually, last year we have a project up in Sligo, Leitrim, Donegal. So those councils are also actually active already. So if you want to find out, if you send me an email about which specific council, we can dig up names. But quite a lot of councils have dedicated personnel.
Perfect. Thank you, Philip.
Yeah, but an email and we can chase from there.
Yeah, brilliant. So I know my colleagues responded to the next question in the Q&A. Unfortunately, no to Northern Ireland. So we'll move on. Is it?
Sorry,
yes,
sorry. To add a little bit of clarification there, yes, of course, the UK is not an EU member nor an associated country, so it is considered as a third country and cannot participate under the same conditions. The only case when an entity like based in Northern Ireland could participate is if it is actually essential for the delivery of the project that will have an impact within the Republic of Ireland. So in that case, it could be. So this we're talking about if it's nature. We're talking about examples like migrating birds or transboundary rivers, species migration. But of course, this is the entity who cannot be a coordinating beneficiary, and in principle, they have to bear the cost of their participation.
The project could not be solely based in Northern Ireland, as Gustavo explains. Thanks, Gustavo. Is it mandatory to apply for funding as part of a partnership cluster, or can an individual organisation apply? And can the funding be put towards existing projects?
Okay.
I was just going to say it's not mandatory, but under the clean energy transition, some of them are. So, Philip, do you want to sort of explain when it is mandatory? Lost Philip. Gustavo, if you want to come in there.
From it's not CET, so yeah, of course, an individual organization, of course, can apply. It doesn't need to be a consortium. It just depends. Every project. Typically, that's we don't receive many applications like that of funded projects, but it can be successful as well. And then can the funding be put towards existing projects where this is has to be like a project with something, there's like a need and there's like a number of deliverables and outputs to come from it. So it has to be something that can be considered as a project. Not like, of course, organizations have their own activities, but it has to be a rounded project.
So yeah, and then on the clean energy transition, so the eligibility criteria is a legal entity can apply. Some of the topics require minimum 3 partners from 3 countries, so you have to be part of a consortium. But an organization, which is a cluster of different companies, can also apply if they're a legal entity and they're in eligible countries. But yeah, the rules for 3 partners, 3 countries apply to quite a lot of topics in the clean energy side.
Perfect, thank you so much. If EU final tranche is at the end of a long project, how do organisations fund the project in the meantime?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
I'll chip in. I think it was me that flagged this point. As I said, this is something to be aware of. For long projects with big budgets, this is going to be more pronounced because obviously the gap between the mid-term report and the final report could be obviously really quite long. So in these situations, it's usually set up that you might have 2 mid-term reports. So there's 2 interim payments, which will reduce that stress waiting for that final payment. So that mitigates that situation a little bit. But yes, the reality is it is a challenge often for small organizations. Again, within the consortium, if it is a consortium, it may be that they can organize it, that the coordinating beneficiary can help with that situation. But yeah, the reality is they need to be prepared that they are not going to get all the money. And bearing in mind, remember, there's no guarantee you get that final tranche. It has to be on the basis of, you know, completion, delivery, and everything being eligible. But yeah, sometimes big projects, there's usually 2 midterm payments, which softens it a bit.
Perfect, thanks, Neil.
Yeah, and just on that, Aileen, for clean energy transition, the projects are usually around 3 years. There's no specification, but they're typically 3 years. And there's 30% funding up front, and the rest of the funding then is developed depending on the work program that you submit. So the work packages are laid out, and the following funding after the 30% depends on that. So it comes down to your own project management, so you can sort of determine the funding. But you typically, a clean energy transition CSA is 3 years, maybe 4 at the max.
Brilliant. Okay, I hope that answers it. We've got a message in on the chat for Neil, actually. In pushing together the application, would it be okay to introduce a buffer, for example, 3 months at the start of the project as a contingency? This would be identified as such and be part of the overall project timeframe, and that's from Paul. Don't know if we've lost Neil.
Sorry, Aileen, where is that question?
It was just in the it was sent direct in the chat. So just to repeat, in putting together the application, would it be okay to introduce a buffer, say 3 months at the start of the project as a contingency? This would be identified as such and be part of the overall project timeframe.
Well, for the clean energy transition, there's 30% upfront funding, so that sort of covers that. And then the rest of the funding is dependent on the work package structure. So there's no real need for a buffer. But for the SAP stuff, I'm not sure.
Well, typically, depending on the type of project, if it requires like some type of infrastructure, permits, and so on, we almost automatically recommend to include the buffer. So it just depends on the type of the actions that you have, but but there are some actions that are like more risky, and then therefore we recommend this buffer.
Perfect, thanks. And our colleague Dave put a very important point into the chat. So just to reiterate, regarding the question on who to contact for clean energy, all local authorities now have dedicated climate action officers and climate action community officers, which should be available on the local authority websites. Some also have dedicated energy officers, as Philip has indicated. Also, you could contact the climate action regional officers who deal closely with local authorities on climate action and energy issues. So thanks, Dave, for that. If I can just go back with the question I had posed at the start to Claire and John, and if you could have done anything differently, what would it have been? And I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I'll start if you like. Maybe Claire can add to this, but what I would do differently would be in the area of recruitment. I think the important thing is to start very, very early recruiting, because by the time you have interviews, by the time you've advertised for staff, by the time you have got them to give their notice for maybe a job they're in already, you may have lost several months of the initial part of your project. So if I was to do something differently, I would start advertising for recruiting people as soon as the project is sanctioned for funding.
Perfect. And I see that question has come back up on the slide of the Q&A about the buffer question. It was specifically for staff recruitment. Yeah, no, that's interesting that you would have changed that, John. Thanks. Claire, have you anything to add?
Yeah, I suppose it is another point around buffering and building in sufficient time. We had 2 large procurement processes as part of our project, one for customer relationship management system, which was Salesforce in the end, and the other for our web developer providers. And they were actually linked as well. So they took quite a bit longer than anticipated, the tendering process, market screening, and so on. And I think it's really just to make sure you build in sufficient time for those, especially if they're linked and create additional interdependencies. Luckily in our project, we had a work package that was monitoring and reviewing. So we were able to monitor what had been done while allowing some additional time for these to roll out. But it is, yeah, similar to staff recruitment. It can be extremely time consuming.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions. So if Kieran, if you just let me share my screen and I'll just explain now, bear with me. Right, so I'm very proud to announce that at DEC here and the NCP, we're going to give people an opportunity who will be applying this year to attend consultation sessions, and they will be held by Deloitte online. So in order to qualify, you need to be applying in the 2024 call, and that can be as part of any of the 4 live sub-programs and also the technical assistance replication, if that's something you're interested in applying for also. So to be considered for this opportunity, you'll need to submit a 5 to 10 page project summary outlining the sub-program and topic which you intend on applying for, consortium members, your co-financing options, and how the proposed project meets each of the 4 call award criteria. The award criteria for this call are as follows: relevance, impact, quality, and resources. And you can find all this in section 9 of the call document. So we ask you to submit your project to our email address by 5 p.m. Oh, I beg your pardon. I've just been told nothing's coming up on my screen, and I'm sorry. But we'll share these slides anyway at the end. But as I said, if you'd like to submit your project by the 5th of July, we can send out further details, and we'll be sharing that with everyone on our mailing list. But if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask now. And for everyone else that participated and our panel of experts, I'd like to thank you so much for everyone who turned up and asked questions. And I wish you all the best in the 2024 live call. Thank you.